What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Fiction. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was a Kryptonian in Marvel Part 2. Now let's begin. Captain Marvel was on a van to pick up a student who had aced one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s tests. She was summoned by Fury to capture the individual responsible for the demise of Captain Emil Blonsky, a former Special Ops commander of the British Royal Marines, following his transformation into what the public deemed an abomination. Wow, this is quite dull, she muttered to myself. SHW just had to choose this job, she muttered to myself. Upon my arrival, she was informed about the individual sporting a S symbol on his chest. Captain Marvel noticed how effortlessly he dealt with Abomination, the name given to him by S.H.I.E.L.D. Once he grew weary of toying with his opponent, or perhaps a mix of both boredom and fatigue, he ultimately ended his life. Going back to Earth was going to be a relief, but it's so dull. At that point, Captain Marvel found out that Fury was sent 3 of his top operatives to meet with a young man whose IQ was higher than that of the wealthy jerk she had offered to assist. Captain Marvel witnessed Coulson attempting to load him into the vehicle, but he was adamant about not doing it, and 2 of his men utterly embarrassed themselves attempting to apprehend him. His description of Agent Coulson as gay made me laugh somewhat. 2 people, one of whom was handcuffed, stepped out of the vehicle behind me. She was going to step out and prevent them from trying to drag a 15-year-old along. She began to suspect he might be a mutant after seeing him shove the agent a short distance away. As soon as she stepped out of the vehicle, she walked over to him and, with a firm grip on his shoulder, managed to halt him in his tracks. "It would be really appreciated if you could accompany us in silence," she added, smirking and winking, confident in my ability to win this confrontation. The sudden grasp on my forearm by him startled me. She increased the pressure, but he did nothing. He exclaimed with apparent enthusiasm, "You want to fight? Let's fight." Then, to her amazement, he shoved her. He swung an uppercut in her direction. Once it made contact, it propelled her into the air. Ouch, it was painful. He was able to inflict harm on me. Captain Marvel was feeling a mix of excitement and fear. She needed to eliminate him immediately since he is a threat. He sprang over to meet me. Come to me by flying, not jumping. Something else was covering him. A black skinsuit bearing a S adorned his chest. She started swooping down on him. He hit me in the face during our altercation. Captain Marvel was able to land a punch to the chest on him. She felt like she was smashing into a wall, but they shoved each other and she flew even more than he did. She was flung farther from the city as he swiftly struck me on the back. Captain Marvel was being cautious so as not to damage the city. Nevertheless, now that they are out of the city, she's going to humiliate Naruto, she told myself. If his "bring it on" motion is any clue, Naruto appeared to have heard her as he approached her. She chased after him with all her power. He initially appeared taken aback. She took advantage of the situation and landed a punch to the left cheek. After he took off, she chased after him and started pummeling him as quickly and forcefully as possible. Naruto showed no signs of bleeding regardless of her efforts, despite the fact that she hit him square in the face. As if he were toying with her, Captain Marvel found that her fists were having less and less of an impact. "Danvers, you there?" Fury remarked in her communicative transcript. She hastily informed him, yes, that student he wanted to be brought to S.H.I.E.L.D. is the one who killed Abomination. She wanted to emphasize the significance of this character by making sure he understood. Now her strikes hardly seemed to hurt him. "Damn it," Captain Marvel exclaimed, her frustration evident. "Who are you?" she asked, her anger rising as he appeared to be grinning. He mentioned someone more powerful than himself and smirked. "Naruto Pav." It was a blast. Her punches were painful at first, but now she doesn't appear to be very strong. It was clear that his adjustment was having the desired effect. Quickly adapting to her strikes, Naruto attempted to absorb her energy, but then he remembered that the Space Stone is somehow linked to her powers. Then he will hold off. He knows Doomsday can develop powers to counter his opponents through his adaptation. That just happened to me. She was blasting him with her energy and it seemed to hurt him. Naruto watched it hit his cells. He saw them be destroyed from the nucleus. But just as fast his body adapted, he could feel some energy being produced and it seemed to go to my arms. As she sent another blast, Naruto thought of doing the same and then they collided. There was no explosion or anything, they negated each other. I noticed that it required a lot of energy. It was silver-colored and the blast looked like hers. Naruto's body was making that energy by using solar energy and converting it. Thankfully he was able to do enough to make her surprised. He went flying towards her and grabbed her by the face, and when flying into the ground he slammed her into it and then used my Speed Force energy to give me a speed boost and began dragging her through the ground. Naruto saw a big boulder. He grabbed her by her hair and when we reached the boulder he began to slam her face first into it. Naruto did this for a few minutes. He was halfway into the stone as it showed a lot of cracks around where he was slamming her face in. He threw her to the ground and he was going to knock her out as she looked like she was going to keep trying to fight me. Naruto heard footsteps all around us as we were surrounded by agents and they were all armed and someone stepped up towards me, Fury. You are under arrest, come quietly and your sentence may be lenient, he said while I had a thought on my mind. That's not Fury, Naruto said in his mind. After hearing what Fury said, I was on guard. He spoke too softly, he thought. Naruto looked at him and his body seemed human until I looked at his DNA. Not a human, maybe a Skrull. Naruto hope it is the MCU ones. He don't want to deal with a secret invasion. He thought a bit nervous since even though he is really powerful, Naruto doesn't not know the location of their home planet. Naruto Pav, no, thank you, I said in a fake cheery voice while I prepared to slam Carol back down into the ground while holding her by her hair. I hope she doesn't cut it, that would be a huge turn off, I thought since she looked pretty before I slammed her face in. You need to stop, you can't be allowed to roam free, you are too powerful for that. So please make it easier on everyone and turn yourself in, he said. I barely paid attention since I was reading his mind and it seemed that I was right, he is a Skrull. He was sent out here while the real Nick Fury watched and planned countermeasures against me. Fun fact, it seems that they have a unique part of their brain that allows them to maintain their changed forms. Even when they make themselves look different, their brains may look similar to humans, but the functions of their brains say otherwise. I was slowly making the Skrull lose his disguise while he babbled about bringing me in. I could hear his heartbeat speed up more as I just stared at him like he was an idiot. He didn't even notice he was revealing how he really looked. The agents around me began to look at him. He seemed to realize he was being looked at as he slowly looked at himself. Oh no, he said in shock. I was looking at Carol who was gasping blood out of her mouth. She looked barely conscious and her eyes were bruised shut with blood dripping from her nose. I think I went too far, I said to myself. I began gathering energy in my hand to make a healing spell and used it on her and saw her visibly healing, but I made sure she was still unconscious. I looked around and saw the agents aiming their guns at the Skrull. I was just paying attention to them to make sure that they didn't do anything dumb. Suddenly, I heard the real Nick Fury yelling commands to the agents to not shoot through their comms. I began to set Carol down carefully, making sure she didn't wake up. She blasted me with photon blasts, but with something else. Infinity Stone energy, the Space Stone. She is still somehow connected to it, but just a fraction of it. It makes sense since she got her powers from it in the Lightspeed engine, but it seems way too coincidental. But the stones may be different but similar. The Space Stone draws cosmic energy from the space aspect of existence. Either Thanos shrank the stones to be the size of atoms or destroyed them in the Endgame movie. If he shrank them to atoms, everything would be fine. But if he actually destroyed them, it would have had disastrous consequences for the universe, or they might just reconstitute somewhere else. There are so many factors to take into account. I had a thought. What if Carol always had her powers, she just didn't have anything to awaken them or rather charge them? She might even be a descendant of an Eternal. But that is too far-fetched. It is still a possibility, Eternals. Celestials, damn it, I whispered to myself, they are coming to Earth. I'll deal with them if they come. If Null is a thing, I am fucked in the down under. I began to pay attention to the agents. They seemed more intent on killing the Skrull than capturing me. I just used my telekinesis to crush the bullets in their guns to jam them. Calm down, you are acting like idiots, I told them in an annoyed voice. I knew Fury himself was coming down since I saw a ship coming down with him alongside Barton and Romanoff. I looked at Carol, who looked to be waking up since she began moving a lot. Everyone calm down, your boss is coming over to explain, I said to them. We just waited a few minutes when Fury and the other two with a few more agents came in. Stand down now, Nick said in an authoritative voice. That is the Nick Fury I know. I thought they all lowered their weapons and Fury looked at me and narrowed his eye. You are going to be coming with us, resist and you won't like the results, he said in an authoritative tone that reminded me that he had some serious balls on him. No, I said simply. He smiled and Clint shot an arrow that looked like a lump of metal and I realized it was vibranium. I wasn't worried though, as it didn't have any sharp point, and noticed it split itself in two and went to both my hands. Vibranium magnetic handcuff. I let my hands come together. When they did, they latched onto each other and they were sealed tight. Fury and everyone else looked smug at me being apprehended easily. This was an opportunity for me to test my strength out since the way the vibranium was tempered differed greatly from mine. I began moving my arms. I was able to pretty much ignore the magnetic properties of the handcuff and the latches last quite a bit. I saw them shooting tranquilizers at me, but they didn't do anything to me. A few more pulls and the metal gives out. I gazed at them with a faint smile. They looked afraid, except Fury. Any more bright ideas? I asked, trying not to laugh in their faces. I should have waited a little longer because I began to feel myself becoming weaker, not literally, but mentally. I feel energy running through the ground and up to me. My kryptonian powers originate in my head. I gradually flew to the skies and discovered who was attempting to weaken me. I went off towards a cliff and sent out a psychic message to the ground. "Bitch, you better not be trying to do." I sent the message telepathically. I felt the ground tremble, and a voice screamed out to me in my head. "What did you call me, you insolent fool?" A female voice rang out. "I called you a bitch, you stupid fool," I said in a pissed-off tone. "That is it," she yelled in my head. She rose from the ground and glared at me, enraged. "Bring it on, bitch," I said. Gaea launched stone spikes and energy bolts. This bitch's arrogance infuriated me. I tried to strike her, but she launched stone spikes at me, attempting to impale me. I flew through them and noticed she had shot an energy blast at me. I didn't want to risk becoming a deity, especially not one from Marvel. I dodged the explosion and, when I got close enough, threw a punch at her face, which landed, sending her back a few meters but holding her ground. "Looks like this isn't going to be as easy as I thought," I replied. She seemed offended by what I said. "I am going to kill you," she yelled. "Before that, why did you attempt to seal my power?" I inquired carefully, but I have an idea why she did this. "The Skyfathers and the ones who preside over fate told me you were dangerous and needed to be destroyed or you would ruin this world," she said in an aggressive tone with a hint of remorse at the end. "You are fateless, which means that if you cannot be controlled then you will be destroyed," she said to me. She seems to be mostly angry over what I called her. She appeared to be annoyed with me, but she labeled me fateless. Is it what I believe it means? "You referred to me as fateless. Could you please explain what that term signifies?" I inquired with her, which appeared to catch her off guard and halt her outburst. "It signifies your liberation from destiny, rendering your actions unpredictable and beyond the grasp of others. They have requested your personal annihilation, unable to intervene as you have not yet posed a threat to them. Furthermore, they are engaged in a contentious dispute over who will claim your soul once I bring about your demise," she stated with a calmer yet still palpable anger. I observed her constructing a protective barrier around herself as I posed my inquiries. "Let's engage in a battle then," I said, prepared to face the Skyfathers with determination. I swiftly approached her and she swiftly retaliated with a punch, to which I responded in kind. Our first collision caused a powerful shockwave, obliterating the cliff beneath us. I delivered a powerful strike towards her face, but she skillfully defended herself by swiftly raising her forearms to block it. She forcefully pulled my leg and flung me down, causing me to collide with the ground. To my horror, the ground seemed to come alive, as if it wanted to devour me. I pondered, marveling at her presence. I started making an effort to climb out of the difficult situation, but it felt like she was creating a barrier around me. As I observed the transformation, I could clearly witness the intricate rearrangement of molecules. "Can you please provide more information about this metal?" I attempted to dismantle it, but unfortunately, I only succeeded in creating small fractures. Gaea appeared self-assured. "Do not underestimate me," I said confidently, provoking her anger, which was evident in her fierce roar. I took advantage of that opportunity to oscillate around the metal that was enveloping me. I was engaged in a physical altercation and used force to separate her from the ground. "I hope this is effective," I murmured as I focused on penetrating her thoughts, determined to keep her consciousness within the body I am battling. It didn't work and I came to the realization that she was utilizing that body as an avatar to engage in combat with me. This was quite challenging, as it would require immense effort to eliminate her without causing widespread destruction. An idea suddenly dawned on me. I swiftly approached her and delivered a powerful blow, leaving a visible imprint of my fist on her side. As she descended, I soared upwards and swiftly descended upon reaching the usual satellite zone. I started utilizing the Speed Force and Crimson Energy to descend into the ground and reach the core. I was considering confronting her to request that she cease and desist and respect my personal space. Upon reaching the ground, I caused a controlled explosion that was carefully contained by the Speed Force to prevent any damage to the planet. After a short while, I arrived at the heart of the matter. I had been merely feigning my intention to strike it when. "Please reconsider your decision," Gaea spoke in my mind. "Promise me that you will never attempt to undermine me again and that you will not assist anyone in their efforts to harm or control me, whether directly or indirectly," I informed her in a straightforward manner. "I promise to fulfill all your requests," she said, clearly frightened by my actions. I observed that she repaired the opening through which I entered. I sensed the solemnity of the oath ceremony. I promptly made my exit, feeling rather uneasy with molten lava surrounding me. It was quite an odd situation, but I somehow managed to escape. Admittedly, I was fully ready to delve deep like that. I had to exercise caution as I recently departed and returned to the stronghold. Gaea's perspective, he possesses an immense amount of power and his actions are often difficult to anticipate. I will need to have a conversation with him in the near future to understand his intentions. I may not have the ability to decipher his thoughts, but I could easily sense and understand his emotions. I came to the realization that he had no intention of actually causing global destruction. In hindsight, I can admit that I may not have been in the best frame of mind when I agreed to his pledge. Now, I must inform the Skyfathers of his actions and my inability to weaken or eliminate him. I could handle them all, but it's simply not worth the trouble. The Fates, however, will surely complain about my failure to surrender the mortal under their control. They have become increasingly influential over time, possibly due to the Asgardian event known as Ragnarok. Naruto returned to the fortress to take a well-deserved break, as everything seemed to be falling apart. The Skyfathers have expressed a desire to possess my soul and have enlisted Gaea to assist them in achieving their goal. I will need to address the situation at some point. What I accomplished with Gaea and compelling her to make the oath. Naruto wouldn't have ventured into the core, but he had to come up with a solution. I will complete the download of all the information from the fortress, although it was quite challenging as it gave me a severe migraine. I'm unsure if some of the languages are the same. I have developed a high level of expertise. It seemed as though the walls had shifted even farther than before. Walls. Oh no. That is the reason for my lack of strength. The mental obstacles in my mind. A kryptonian's strength is derived from their intellect. Initially, Superman turned away from his kryptonian heritage. He couldn't fully utilize his abilities due to this, or they were somewhat diminished. I have transformed into a kryptonian being. Perhaps I still perceive myself as a human, even as I delve into my abilities. However, my human mindset continues to limit me. I ventured beyond the stronghold and soared high above the billowing clouds. I observed the sun. The events of Thor don't begin until 2010, but the current year is still 2008, I believed. Although I possess the ability to overpower and outpace everyone out there, in terms of everything else, I am clearly at a disadvantage. I'm in quite a predicament with this particular Thanos. If he happens to possess any magical abilities, I'm in serious trouble. The information I received from the fortress was impressive, although it was overwhelming in quantity. I spent several hours meticulously organizing and sorting through a vast amount of information. I could sense a significant improvement in the clarity and organization of my thoughts. After 3 hours, I was just about to complete my task when I noticed a sturdy metal door. Simply a thought in my mind. I was unaware of its nature. I was confident that there was no actual threat to my mental well-being, and my thorough examination yielded no evidence to the contrary. I opened the door and sensed a release in the air. Unleashing my hidden potential. I had a strong sense of power, as if I could easily break the earth if I wasn't cautious. This has opened up new possibilities. If I could consciously overcome these obstacles, I would be able to transform myself into a force to be reckoned with. Just like a Kryptonian under a red sun, I would be able to adapt more efficiently and smoothly. Then, I wondered if my body could withstand bullets. I have learned to adjust in various situations. I was uncertain about the extent to which my body could endure damage. I examined the cells in my hand and observed their remarkable strength and resilience. With my enhanced understanding, I realized that my cells were not perishing, but rather undergoing further development. I understood that it wasn't a case of cancer progressing, but rather that my body didn't require any new cells at the moment. I was aware of the body's ability to generate new cells in the event of an injury. I didn't feel any impact whatsoever. Perhaps I can harness the solar radiation from my cells. I am adjusting my body to different situations in preparation for harnessing solar energy. I came to understand the extent of the damage to both my physical and mental well-being, but what about my inner being? I have yet to come across anyone who can challenge it. I secured the entrance within my mental shields. Rest assured that your belongings will be secure and protected. But how can I help my soul adjust? Did it adjust when I acquired my own dimension? I may possess these skills, but I struggle to comprehend them. I understand the importance of training to improve my skills. The mental obstacle that I have or had, it was something that I unintentionally made for myself. I have transcended my human nature. I was fixated on my ability to fly and possess super speed, believing that with sufficient preparation, I could overcome any opponent or obstacle. I am aware that certain individuals possess the power to erase me from existence effortlessly. I need to become more proficient in handling challenges without constantly relying on my ability to adapt, even if that has made me more resilient in the past. I would like to establish a solid framework for understanding and harnessing my personal strengths, enabling me to leverage them effectively in various situations for my benefit. I understand that the Speed Force is an incredible power for individuals who possess a deep understanding of its capabilities. Wally West demonstrated an incredible ability to surpass the limits of speed, surpassing even the concept of velocity by harnessing the power of the Speed Force, if my memory serves me right. Which is completely unacceptable. How can my Speed Force, which has only been in existence for a short time, possibly keep up with such a massive amount of energy? Even if I were to spend an eternity at a blue star, I would never be able to generate enough energy to utilize it constantly. I entered my zone and saw the energy. It barely seemed to be the size of an Olympic pool. DC's Speed Force surrounds their multiverse, or something like that. I know I'm generating energy right now and sending it here so it can accumulate over time. But how can I boost it any further? I can barely use the quantity in my core for 6 minutes straight, and that's only to improve my speed by 500 kilometers per hour. I can use it all in a few seconds to triple the speed of sound for 2 seconds before exhausting the energy in my core. I need a safe environment to grow stronger. I need to leave Earth and travel to space for some time. Time jump 3 weeks later. I was working on improving my ability to control my powers. I'm stuck here alone. Even if I am friends with Jean and agree with the Ancient One, Logan would assist me because he owes me. Aurora, bless her heart, has given up on fighting completely. Emma is busy assisting the metas at the island shelter Magneto rescued from the sea. Jean would help me, but she is not yet strong enough. The Phoenix Force hasn't come yet, but I can tell she's summoning it with her powers. I could travel into space to find the Power Stone. But I have no idea where Morag is. I'm going to presume Thanos possesses the Mind Stone. For the time being, the Tesseract benefits from S.H.I.E.L.D. If I let Loki arrive with the Mind Stone, I'll be able to pretend the scepter was destroyed. What happens if I absorb the energy from all of the Infinity Stones? Would I start producing my own energy? Will it operate in other universes? The power might work since the energy has become mine. I would essentially remove it from the cosmos. There are so many things to do, and I'm not sure what to do. I need different means to get power. Then I remembered Xavier's studies on the X gene. I took all of the server's information to keep people like Trask and Essex from obtaining it. He discovered that the X gene is a blank slot. This signifies that no powers exist prior to activation. He figured this out by injecting a blank X gene with power. It customizes and adds it to the blank one. For example, Xavier attempted to combine his X gene with Logan's to obtain his healing factor. It failed because his account was already activated. It took him a while to find someone with a blank X gene, but he did. But I stopped him before he could experiment on them. I am a kryptonian with no X gene, however this can alter due to my adaptation. But if I did, what powers would I get? Logan's would provide me with a healing factor, making me practically immortal, at least physically, and most likely claws. My own regeneration would help me heal faster, and my adaptation would propel me to new heights. The claws would be an intrinsic part of me because they would most likely be increased by my own body, which sounds both exciting and terrible. I could gain Jean's, Emma's, and Aurora's abilities. Jean's and Emma's would most likely function nicely together. They would most likely increase my own telepathic abilities to an extraordinary level. Aurora's would supplement my own elemental abilities. My magical core appears to be more aligned with them than any other sort of magic. Perhaps I hadn't worked everything out. I employed the elements as I had in my former life: earth, water, fire, wind, and electricity. All 5 of these seemed to work. The only one that took some time was lightning, which was more chaotic and unpredictable than the others. I could even sense something aggressively keeping me from using it. Naruto didn't know what was going on. I thought Gaea was keeping me from growing stronger. But it wasn't how I remembered her oath. Either because lightning was a type of plasma and hence tough to maintain for my core, or someone or something was hindering me from progressing with it. With fire, I could concentrate it sufficiently to melt vibranium. After 3 hours, okay, maybe not as far as I'd want, but the fact that I can melt it is better than nothing. Earth, I had to stop since I'd already pissed off Gaea. I could make diamonds and other minerals from it, but it was a bit of a waste. Water was something different entirely. I could control it within someone for a moment because I didn't want to accidentally kill them. I tried to stop the molecules from moving in order to get ice. It worked, although it required a great deal of concentration on my part. I tried infusing it with wind, which worked better because it required less attention. However, it was too slow to employ in a combat. I have experimented with different elements such as wood and plasma. I was frustrated by the lack of progress on wood and plasma. I wanted to engulf my palm in plasma to create a lightsaber. Nothing happened. I just squandered my magic for a day. My martial arts training has been going well. The only difficulty is that I don't have somebody to test myself against. I've also started to learn the weapon styles that come with the Fortress database. It was difficult, but thanks to my super speed and the Speed Force, I was able to learn them even faster. The only downside is that I don't have somebody to spar against in order to master them. The Ancient One was assisting me in some of them, but we had to stop because I was becoming too quick or strong, almost injuring her horribly. I'll have to push my abilities even further than previously. I still have some time before Thor arrives. Doomsday has not been seen anywhere, and if he has, the people have already died. But there haven't been any reports of him in a while. If Lex Luthor shows up, I will kill him without question. Brainiac is probably in space, and he's considerably more dangerous. This is why I am not allowing Ultron to exist in any way. Those two together make for a scary mix. Bizarro, I'm just going to dump him into the Phantom Zone. I'm not even going to deal with him. The Superman enemies are a pain in the ass to deal with. Naruto has no idea whether or not the villains that defeated the entire Justice League would be brought over. I don't have to deal with people like Clarion or Batman who laughs. Except for the one who laughs, I would pick Clarion any day of the week. I'm just going to leave this reality and avoid him until I get powerful enough. Hopefully, it's only the villains that Superman has to deal with. I need to exercise caution as certain individuals may become aware of my actions and grow more powerful, questioning my knowledge of such abilities. Dealing with the Skyfathers may pose a challenge, but I am fully confident in my abilities when the time comes to face them. I will be prioritizing the X-Gene at the moment. Fast forward 2 days. As I observed the helicarrier, I couldn't help but notice that it appears to be less advanced compared to its depiction in the comics. It's logical that the events haven't occurred yet, I murmured to myself. I am here to either frustrate them or clarify things with them. I refuse to wait for others to develop weapons that could potentially harm me, only to then adapt and see them being used against innocent individuals. I observed individuals in uniform emerging with their firearms aimed in my direction. Here we go again, I murmured to myself, hands in the air now. An agent shouted foolishly. I regarded him with a sense of disbelief. No, I replied to him. Fire, exclaimed the agent once again. This was an excellent opportunity. I raised my hand as they began shooting in my direction. I successfully halted the bullets using my telekinetic abilities. I am currently experiencing an issue with my Neo. They all looked at me with fear after witnessing me effortlessly disarming their weapons. I inadvertently reinforced their concerns about their inability to take any action against me. I may have even expedited their work with the Tesseract. They might even develop more advanced weaponry. People often feel envious when they witness others possessing skills they lack. There are individuals who pose a threat to my safety and may attempt to gain access to my genetic material in order to study my unique abilities. The documentation of other races by Kryptonians in the fortress demonstrates the wide range of qualities exhibited by humans. Many species observed by Kryptonians displayed a remarkable tendency to avoid conflict for an extended period of 400 years. During this time, they would collaborate and strive for self-improvement. Considering the course of human history, it is understandable that there would be attempts to prevent excessive advancement. They expressed concern about the potential consequences of their actions, fearing the negative impact on the universe and the potential harm to advanced civilizations. Their envy had the potential to disrupt the balance of the cosmos, and their insatiable desire for worldly possessions was widely known. Long ago, Kryptonians arrived to observe humans during a time when their sun had a different color. They were deeply disturbed by the actions of individuals towards one another. Eventually, other highly skilled beings discovered the existence of humans and graciously invited them to explore the vastness of space. Intrigued by the extraordinary abilities of Kryptonians, these advanced species sought to uncover the potential within humans and guide them towards a similar path. The final outcome was extremely disappointing, lacking the immense strength of individuals like Steve Rogers who have received the Super Soldier Serum. They were quite intimidating, to put it mildly. The Guardians of the Universe deemed Earth unfit for habitation due to the excessive aggression displayed by its inhabitants. As a result of certain political circumstances, humanity found itself in a state of isolation. It is understandable that humans are often regarded with disdain by many other races in DC. Observing the Atlanteans in DC, it is evident that many of them hold a sense of superiority towards humans, despite being of the same species. They achieved great success and made significant advancements in technology, reaching the height of their confidence. While humans may resemble Kryptonians physically, this is where the similarities end. I am not claiming that humans are the only wicked ones. However, it was unquestionably among the worst. However, their ability for good is great. but it is largely overshadowed by their evil. I looked at the agents, and they were paralyzed. I glanced at the bullets and used telekinesis to compress them into a ball. Then he hurled it to the side of the helicopter carrier. "I want to speak with Nicholas Joseph Fury," I replied authoritatively. My mind wasn't really in it because I realized my thinking was shifting. When I first joined the Marvel Universe as a Kryptonian, I imagined myself fighting great foes and facing various hardships. My human mentality motivated me to become stronger by overcoming these massive challenges to the universe. My Kryptonian biology causes me to think more like a Kryptonian. This is why I haven't really prepared for war. My mentality is being affected as a result of my biological transformation, not in a negative way, but also not in a positive way. I'm scared that because of some results from tests I conducted on myself, I won't be myself for very long. I will be, but not simultaneously. I'll be someone altogether new. I've slowly realized that I no longer have the same drive to fight, but I know I need to get tougher to defend myself. I was going to ask them again when I heard an agent's earpiece say, "Let me in." I wasn't nervous, but more excited. When I realized that the secret invasion event in the Marvel Cinematic Universe had been publicized before I arrived. I will most likely have to keep a watch on them to ensure they do not try anything. You may say I'm paranoid or that my inner Batman was showing, but I can't be too certain. I have a plan. 1. Establish a fairly workable relationship with an organization to assist me in the future. 2. Learn how to create metal like Captain America's shield. 3. Infuse the metals with Uru and, if it proves to be as excellent as Uru, find and use adamantium. 4. Create equipment capable of killing Celestials, but if I can go higher, that's fine. 5. Spend a month in a blue sun and then in a neutron star to see if I develop other powers like Hell did. Move along, another agent replied. Another attempted to place handcuffs on me. I could see the metal was one I didn't identify, but I had an idea what it was finally. Adamantium, hopefully, true adamantium. I was looking at the agent as he stepped forward to place the handcuffs on me. How foolish are these people? I thought to myself, then felt relieved when I read the agent's mind and realized it wasn't just adamantium, but true adamantium. I grabbed the handcuffs. "Thanks for the gift," I remarked in a cheerful tone. I rushed past them and inside the helicarrier. It's much bigger on the inside than I expected, but I already knew where Fury was. But what piqued my curiosity was that some doctor on the helicarrier understands the full process of producing true adamantium. Dr. Mayron McLean, the individual who dozed off during the creation of proto-adamantium. When attempting to replicate the metal without vibranium, true adamantium was created. Upon further investigation, I uncovered the name of this doctor to be Jason, who has been entrusted with the process by his grandfather. His father passed away due to cancer. Jason's grandfather chose to entrust his grandson, who was 19 at the time, with the responsibility of carrying on the family tradition, as he was the only one remaining who possessed the knowledge of the process. Upon examining the handcuffs and comparing them to Logan's skeleton, it is evident that there is a significant disparity between the two. The handcuffs, made of true adamantium, are a solid metal. Logan's adamantium is particularly remarkable, as it brings to mind the unique qualities exhibited by Prometheum in DC. An impressive feature of this is its ability to regenerate itself. I was frustrated in my mind that it is impossible. His body underwent a remarkable transformation, allowing him to harness its power in conjunction with his incredible healing abilities. The X gene appears to function in a way that is currently not feasible. Expertise. That provides a comprehensive explanation. They allow individuals who activate them to connect to a seemingly random dimension. However, there are numerous shortcomings with this theory. Logan's unique attributes include his remarkable healing abilities and impressive physique. However, his extraordinary claws and heightened senses remain unexplained. I have reached the location where Fury is located. I opened the door and was met with the sight of a gun being pointed at me by a stunning redhead with captivating green eyes. I firmly grasped the firearm and attempted to exert force upon it. I successfully closed the barrel. I noticed that the gun was crafted with exceptional precision, and the bullets matched its remarkable quality. Wow, that is quite costly to produce, I thought to myself. I reviewed her most recent recollection of acquiring her new firearm. Opting for another option would have incurred higher costs. Her current one is quite expensive. A staggering amount of $15 million. The price of producing the metal was simply accounted for. The machines are significantly more expensive, not including the cost of the mold. They must utilize the metal within a strict time frame of 8 minutes before it starts to solidify. They misplaced the majority of the other materials during the procedure while waiting for metals such as steel to melt simultaneously. The process is usually carried out in a controlled environment to minimize interruptions and ensure the successful bonding of the metals. I glanced in Fury's direction. If you'd like to chat, I can step away, I informed Fury with a pleasant tone. I ensured that I respected everyone's privacy by refraining from delving too deeply into their memories. My intention was to gather specific information rather than their entire life story. This is the challenge with individuals who possess a high level of expertise. They tend to have a well-organized thought process akin to a library. Given my quick pace, I swiftly scanned through the titles of the books until I located the one I needed. It's no surprise that Charles was able to deceive numerous individuals with his exceptional abilities. Regardless of any opinions, his expertise in neutralizing individuals with mental powers was truly remarkable. I believe he could definitely give someone like Martian Manhunter a tough challenge. Most of this stems from his extensive experience in hunting and eliminating them. "Let's have a conversation," said Fury in a composed tone, although I could sense his increasing heart rate. "Relax, if I had any intention of harming you, I would have taken down the helicarrier by now," I said, my voice tinged with irritation. Natasha was attempting to electrocute me, which I found intriguing given her determination to subdue or restrain me. I was still clutching the handcuffs, contemplating how to either melt them or discover a method of manipulating matter. I could also acquire the ability to manipulate true adamantium through the use of anti-metal. "Please stand down," Fury instructed Natasha, while Carol remained on the floor below us, prepared to intervene if necessary. I noticed a hint of apprehension in her gaze. I caused her great distress. I felt remorseful for losing control of myself and causing her significant harm. "Listen, Fury, I have no problems with S.H.I.E.L.D., but if you persist in attempting to gather extensive information about me or exert control over me, I will oppose you and S.H.I.E.L.D. However, I want to clarify that my loyalty lies with Earth, as it is my home," I informed him. "I cannot simply disregard your presence as a potential danger to the people of this planet, given your immense power," he stated, growing more assured as Natasha approached him. "Given our current situation, let's establish a mutual understanding. You refrain from interfering with my affairs, and I'll do the same for you, at least for the time being," I stated, aware that he was already contemplating various strategies to undermine me, which caught me off guard. "I assume you will continue attending Midtown High, given your exceptional intellect. Agent Romanov will be assigned as your teacher to keep a close watch on you," he stated. I was concerned that this would be chaotic. "Very well, but I insist on keeping the handcuffs," I informed him, growing weary of his nonsense. He gave me a skeptical glance as I quickly surveyed his office. I couldn't help but wonder if Hydra was keeping a close eye on him with all those cameras. I didn't have any intention of lodging a complaint about Natasha continuing as my teacher. Perhaps I could potentially win her over. Indeed, I have serious concerns about true adamantium. The positive aspect is that the fortress has the ability to melt it. Unfortunately, it is quite time-consuming. Additionally, I was only able to enlarge the size of the handcuffs by 6 times. It required a significant portion of my PIM particle reserves to achieve such a substantial increase. When attempting to enchant a small knife I crafted, it unfortunately did not endure the magical properties very effectively. Perhaps if I can find a way to incorporate vibranium, there might be a chance of success. However, I cannot guarantee it. It has been a few days since my meeting with S.H.I.E.L.D. and discussing some of the details and apologizing to Carol for the altercation. Looking back in time, after a conversation with Fury and Natasha, I handed over a device with a distinct frequency that I am able to detect. I made sure to choose a model that cannot be used as a weapon. As I was leaving, I noticed Carol approaching the office. When she caught sight of me, her demeanor became tense, and I could sense a hint of apprehension in her gaze. I regretted causing her to feel this way as I went too far. "I apologize for causing you such significant harm," I expressed to her. She appeared taken aback. "You thoroughly outperformed me, causing significant impact in the process." She expressed frustration at how I outperformed her, potentially causing distress. I glanced downward. "I understand that my actions caused you a great deal of pain. It was quite unexpected to encounter someone as formidable as you in New York," I remarked, sensing a noticeable boost in their confidence with each passing word. "I must admit, I defeated you quite effortlessly, without even exerting much effort," I informed her, subtly deflating her ego. She glanced downward at the floor. I observed a situation where she was aggressively advancing towards me with the intention of defeating me. "I've noticed that you lack experience in aerial combat. I could assist you in that area, as I am also looking for a practice partner," I suggested, highlighting the mutual benefits. While the fortress does possess certain combat techniques, they primarily rely on sheer physical power. I am looking for someone to engage in aerial combat training. She appeared to be considering it and eventually. Okay, I forgive you, but you still have a debt to repay. I am willing to be your training partner since you mentioned something that I had already considered, she stated. Alright, I'll inquire with Fury regarding my apartment. I'm confident that he's already aware of it, despite my infrequent use, I informed her. This statement holds true, as I am inclined to purchase the entire building due to my ongoing business negotiations with multiple companies. These negotiations involve the sale of minerals that I have collected from my space mine located on Saturn's ring. I have amassed a substantial fortune of approximately $58 million. I had to secure a few loans that I have already repaid in order to acquire several warehouses for the purpose of preparing shipments. On a positive note, this endeavor has resulted in the creation of new employment opportunities. I ensured that I maintained a modest size to prevent any suspicion. I had created my own board with fabricated members on it. I had a fake ID created with a professional face generator. Getting everything started was quite challenging. However, the fortress ensured that everything operated seamlessly. End of flashback. I also found a training partner through this experience. However, we did encounter a common challenge, our initial strength. Fortunately, with the help of solar energy and my ability to adapt, I am confident that I will become stronger over time. We didn't have anything that required significant lifting. Although I possessed the ability to effortlessly lift massive objects with my bioelectric aura, she did not share the same capability. I had to devise strategies to enhance it. Then, an unexpected idea crossed my mind, piquing my curiosity even further about my adaptation. Given my experience and training, I should be able to sustain my strength even in the absence of direct exposure to sunlight. My body has adapted to harnessing that level of power, allowing me to tap into it even without relying on solar energy. I had planned to conduct an experiment later, but the thought of it was overwhelming. After a short while, I found myself working with true adamantium and feeling increasingly frustrated by my lack of progress. The metal's conductivity for magic was subpar, and the amount of PIM particles required to produce a meager quantity was becoming increasingly absurd. Naruto needed to enhance his efficiency to acquire more particles. The metal was sufficient to enable machines to work with it. He was determined to acquire the Antarctic vibranium. However, his understanding of the savage land is quite limited. He lacks extensive knowledge about it. I am aware that there were two individuals involved in either assisting or opposing the X-Men, but I must admit that I never found it particularly captivating to delve into the details. Now it's coming back to haunt me. Even though I have the ability to move at a remarkable speed, I am uncertain about the potential consequences it may have on the universe, considering that my existence remains a mystery to even the most abstract entities. I cannot guarantee how they would respond if they were aware of my knowledge. It could potentially lead to a hostile response, and I cannot rely on any external intervention to assist me. Acquiring vibranium and true adamantium could potentially make me a more prominent target. I am seeking guidance on the process of creating proto-adamantium. Later, I will attempt to acquire some uru and incorporate it into the mixture. I can patiently await the arrival of the destroyer and its subsequent disintegration to acquire what I desire. I should work on developing patience, considering my extended lifespan. Something that evoked mixed emotions was my experience with adamantium. Although I encountered some frustrations while trying to make progress, I managed to maintain my composure and avoid any outbursts of anger or rage. I noticed a correlation between my shifting mindset and the influence of my kryptonian brain. It was helping me feel more composed, which isn't a negative outcome, but I need to make an effort to limit the alterations. Having a clear and focused mind is extremely beneficial. I should dedicate more time to honing my telekinetic abilities. I aim to enhance my abilities to the extent where I can manipulate molecules and reorganize them prior to obtaining the Mind Stone. I can already anticipate the headache I will experience. Now I need to consider the best source for acquiring adamantine. After 3 days I am not willing to allow Cheel to have free reign. I am observing their activities and the Skrulls closely. Their technology seems to be lacking compared to mine, which is not surprising considering they no longer have their homeworld. I have obtained the location of the Space Stone, also known as the Tesseract. They store all pertinent data on their servers, and I gained inspiration from observing the helicarrier. What if I designed and built my own spacecraft? Now listen to what I have to say. It would serve as my personal headquarters in space. I possess an extensive supply of materials from my mines and the PIM particles that is truly remarkable. I can include all of my desired or necessary items on it. I need to create a design that allows for easy modifications in the future. Another factor that enhances the feasibility of this is the utilization of space magic, similar to the one employed in Kamar Taj. Through the art of spatial manipulation, I have the ability to magnify the dimensions of rooms to extraordinary proportions. Unfortunately, it is not possible to acquire the necessary materials to expand the room, as the laws of the universe do not allow for such a process. I would like to establish a location that is beyond the reach of Gaea's influence. I started strategizing the ship's design, intending to have it constructed in space with a cloaking mechanism to evade detection by humans. I'm uncertain about Heimdall's ability to detect it. Then I had considered whether some of the designs in the fortress would be reliable. I was confident that the structure wouldn't collapse due to its own weight, thanks to the information I found in the fortress about advanced machines designed to prevent such incidents. I am interested in acquiring a ship in order to explore other planets and approach a blue star. One of the main concerns revolves around the star map in the fortress. It appears that the star placements or solar systems depicted are more aligned with the DC universe rather than our own reality. Some of the stars are situated in different locations or simply do not exist in our universe. I could potentially create a few scout ships and utilize them as a means of navigation or exploration throughout the universe, until I am able to obtain reliable data on it. I could also utilize them as markers to navigate back to Earth. After some time, it became clear that building robots capable of constructing the ship and defending themselves was necessary. I had a clear vision of how they would appear in the body. I would use the Ultron main body from the MCU as a reference. They would be under the control of the fortress. I would not create I am here to assist them. The fortress itself was highly proficient in accomplishing the task. They remained silent. Now you can create the sunstone crystals with ease. I would draw inspiration from the Doomsday ship, specifically focusing on its design and features. It was an impressive display of advanced technology. I wouldn't replicate it exactly, as that would be quite absurd. Some of the materials could be substituted with vibranium, a remarkable metal. The sunstone that accompanied the fortress had the remarkable ability to reshape surrounding materials, multiplying its own presence. I refrained from conducting any tests on Earth due to potential risks, such as Gaea's potential retaliation or the possibility of someone attempting to merge with the planet in her absence. I could attempt to handle it independently by provoking her aggression and subsequently assuming control. However, an obstacle prevented me. I would need to rest for an extended period and defend myself against formidable adversaries such as Mephisto or Dormammu. I have made significant progress in my studies of magic, but it is now time for me to begin my work on the ship. I have already developed a highly efficient machine for collecting PIM particles. I have created a new fortress on Mars that surpasses the size of the one on Earth. The teleporters are highly efficient in transferring supplies to enhance the ship's speed. It was planned to be half the size of the helicarrier. I had plans to create weapons that would outshine even the most awe-inspiring celestial creations. However, all the necessary arrangements have been made to commence. It is rather peculiar not to require sleep. I started instructing the fortress to initiate the construction of the robots. My next goal was to acquire some adamantium. One option that comes to mind is obtaining a replica Trident of Neptune from Marvel in Pontus. I ventured out of the fortress, surveying the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean in search of Pontus. I understood it was a challenging endeavor, but I felt compelled to make an attempt and locate it. I could also consider Namor's, as it is widely recognized that he lacks significance in various aspects. I have had the opportunity to witness Atlantis on a few occasions, observing its remarkable depths beneath the surface of the water. However, to me, they seem to be in close proximity. Then it crossed my mind, what if Pontus is in Atlantis? While exploring the underwater city, my attention was drawn to a massive limestone statue situated just outside the city. Behind the statue, there were locked doors that piqued my curiosity. I couldn't gain any insight into it regardless of my efforts. I made the decision to go and investigate it. I entered the location swiftly, as I was uncertain about the possibility of being detected. As I approached the door, I noticed intricate engravings that portrayed a somber scene. Neptune's demise in this universe is quite a relief, a small victory amidst the chaos, I pondered. I noticed that the doors were equipped with advanced technology that created a barrier around the burial ground, making it impossible for me to see what was inside. I approached the doors, experiencing an unusual sensation of floating while submerged. I attempted to swim around, but it quickly lost its appeal. Instead, I decided to make my way towards the doors, effortlessly phasing through them. There were very few people present. I had the ability to perceive even in the absence of light. I sensed a strong presence in the center of the room. I approached the coffin and upon opening it, I discovered the valuable item inside. I believe this one is a replica, but it is still crafted with the utmost precision and attention to detail. I examined it closely and noticed its resemblance to the one Namor possesses in the comics, albeit lacking the fin. As I examined it, I sensed a surge of energy in my hand. I sensed a strong bond developing between it and myself. I made a conscious effort to keep it out of my thoughts, but somehow it found its way into my mind, latching onto me as its new host. I hurriedly departed upon noticing the fading energy surrounding the tomb. I found myself on the fortress, realizing that I had a device on me that could teleport me back to it. Regrettably, its functionality is limited to the vicinity of the Earth. I intended to conduct further research, but the space laws of Marvel proved to be quite vexing. I firmly grasped the trident while utilizing my telekinetic abilities to effortlessly rid myself of the water. After some time, I found myself utilizing the abilities granted by the trident, and to my surprise, Namor's lack of intelligence became abundantly clear. It provided a high level of control over water, down to the individual water molecules. It appears that Namor is either unaware of the capabilities of his replica or simply indifferent to them. He caused extensive water damage to Wakanda. Admittedly, he possessed a portion of the Phoenix Force, so perhaps I am overestimating his abilities. However, it is important for him to be mindful of it. Through my attempt at utilizing the energy blasts, I inadvertently created a breach in the fortress. To be completely frank, it was simply a replica of the one from DC. It possesses the ability to control the Earth's waters, summon vast quantities of water, and manipulate energy for a range of uses such as generating bolts, arcs, and force fields. My attempts to reshape the metal were abruptly halted by the immense power contained within the trident, rumored to be infused with a fragment of Neptune's very essence. I sensed no discernible connection to it. Perhaps he truly is deceased. I started to establish a connection with it, and much to my astonishment, it actually worked. Hopefully, it doesn't make a deity yet. He is truly deceased, isn't he? I murmured to myself. The drawbacks of being a deity, particularly as portrayed in Marvel, make it unappealing to me. I could attempt to venture into another realm and strive to attain godlike status, drawing inspiration from the world of Dragon Ball. In this alternate reality, gods possess seemingly invincible qualities, and as a different kind of deity, I might be impervious or exceptionally resilient to any potential weaknesses. I am confident that my adaptation will be able to adjust accordingly. However, if someone were to possess weapons designed for eliminating deities, all they would require is superior speed and strength to swiftly sever my head, resulting in my demise. Doomsday perished and was subsequently brought back to life by Bertrand in order to confront the concept of mortality. I began my adaptation from scratch. I am not taking any chances. I have no desire to experience death once more. Doomsday was effortlessly overtaken by Necron after his previous demise. Fortunately, chaos itself revived me, ensuring that I am impervious to his control. I glanced towards the trident and successfully transformed it into a different shape through sheer concentration. An illuminating realization dawned upon me. I have a strong sense of ownership and perhaps there is no need for me to alter it in any way. One of my notable qualities is my ability to adapt. I transformed it into an adamantine ingot and started infusing it with energy from my dimension. I understood that my dimension had the ability to adjust to various forms of energy once I connected it to myself, and I was attempting to do the same with the ingot. I developed a function that allows the energy to absorb metal and merge with it, thereby enhancing its capabilities. I was dedicating a significant amount of effort to it, and when I felt satisfied, I paused to assess and appreciate the outcome. The object had a distinct golden hue, with a mesmerizing aura that seemed to envelop it. Upon closer observation, one could discern hints of crimson amidst the rapid, electrifying arcs of light. It was successful. I had a versatile weapon that matched my adaptability, thankfully. I was considering the possibility of incorporating various metals into its composition, rendering most of the equipment here obsolete. However, everything was worth it. I was completely unaware of its capabilities. I had a question regarding something in my dimension. I checked and saw something that really angered me. I had utilized the majority of the crimson energy and exhausted every ounce of energy from the Speed Force. The only remaining trace of Speed Force energy was due to my continuous production and transmission of it. Oh my goodness. After 3 days, it's been 3 days since I received my adamantine, but unfortunately, the PIM particles cannot expand it. It seems unlikely for some unknown reason, even if I desired it. You seem to be daydreaming quite often, Jean remarked as we sat in the school cafeteria. Yeah, just a few things I need assistance with, I said. You could tell you no, she said, glancing slightly to the side with a hint of disappointment. I understand, but we're in a professional setting and it's best to discuss this matter privately, I said, giving her a questioning look. All right, I understand. You can keep your secrets, she said with a slight chuckle. I introduced her to the joys of memes and fortunately, Lord of the Rings was available. I assure you, I will inform you later. All right, I said, attempting to suppress my laughter. You better be serious, she said the last part in a hushed tone. I decided to be less inspired by Clark Kent. I made the decision to create my own name, which, in hindsight, turned out to be a less than ideal choice when I sensed a shift in my identity to my new kryptonian name, Naruto L. I have chosen to keep my Earth name the same, with a slight difference, as a way to pay tribute to Kal-El. I observed Peter approaching us with a downcast expression. I exchanged a knowing glance with Jean, fully aware of the subject at hand. Hey, Peter, how are you? I asked, hoping to encourage him to open up and share any issues he might be facing, despite his tendency to maintain a professional demeanor. I'm doing well, just feeling a bit fatigued, he admitted, his voice reflecting his exhaustion. I am aware that he has not yet encountered a group as formidable as the Sinister Six. I have been closely monitoring his progress, and it's worth noting that he has only assumed the role of Spider-Man for a period of 3 months. However, the adversaries he encounters possess considerable strength, much like the formidable inheritors. I have limited knowledge about them, but if they come for him, I will provide assistance. They could potentially provide me with a solution to navigate the multiverse. Peter, we are here for you. Feel free to share what's on your mind, Jean said in a caring yet assertive tone. I am searching for employment to assist Aunt May with the bills, he said with a sense of disappointment. However, I have not been successful in finding anything, he continued. Perhaps I can consider hiring him. I do have plans to establish a scientific division within my company, and when he reaches the appropriate age, I could potentially assign him a leadership role. Perhaps providing him with some guidance, I can suggest that he begins his journey by working at one of the warehouses I own. I pondered silently. Hey, I'm aware of a new company called L Metals that's starting up. I heard that one of their warehouses is currently hiring, so maybe you could give it a shot, I mentioned. I am genuinely trying to assist him. I am aware of his proficiency in utilizing older technology. Despite his desktop being 3 years old, it performs exceptionally well, comparable to a model from 2018. Imagine providing him with the necessary resources and ample time to improve. Superior Spider-Man made numerous attempts to enact what he believed to be positive actions, but ultimately, his endeavors in Parker Industries met with failure. Perhaps I will investigate. He expressed optimism about securing a job, which is highly likely. Jean glanced in my direction as I heard her voice resonate in my mind. What are you planning? She asked me silently, her gaze filled with suspicion. I am assisting him in securing employment, I replied. Peter, why are you putting in so much effort? It can't be solely because of your aunt's financial obligations, I asked him with genuine curiosity, considering he hasn't yet begun selling pictures of Spider-Man. Yes, you're correct. We are responsible for covering Uncle Ben's hospital expenses during his stay, as well as the costs associated with his funeral and burial. It's quite overwhelming for us, he expressed wearily. I ensured that I terminated my connection with Jean. Perhaps they were unable to secure a loan from the bank. I'm unsure if they received one in the comics, I pondered. I'm optimistic that everything will go smoothly. Hello there, a bothersome voice interrupted me. We all let out a sigh at Flash Thompson. I found myself quite frustrated with him, although not necessarily angry, as he seems to prioritize other matters over assisting his family. Then I had an idea and got to my feet. That's sufficient, Eugene, I informed him as he approached us. He started to become upset with me, claiming it was his first. His father tragically lost his life while on duty, bravely serving as a police officer. His mother holds a part-time position, while his sister contributes by crafting bracelets and necklaces that are sold on the street, and they are of remarkable quality. Although he took advantage of both of them, he did find a part-time job for a period before he decided to quit. What did you just refer to me as? He said with frustration. I mentioned your name, Eugene. Are you taking advantage of your mom and little sister by using their hard-earned money for yourselves without reciprocating? I calmly stated, devoid of any emotion in my voice. He appeared taken aback by my words, causing me to quickly retreat as he departed with a perplexed expression. Jean and Peter both looked at me with a sense of scrutiny. He deserved it, I casually mentioned, showing no concern for him. He lacks skills and experience due to his age. Peter has yet to encounter a symbiote, therefore Agent Venom is not in the picture. Once we had completed our meal in a quiet manner, we proceeded to our respective classes. Unfortunately, we did not have the last 2 classes together, so we headed to our individual classes. When I arrived, I chose to sit at the back so as not to attract any unnecessary attention. I can't help but feel like the entire school is already aware of what transpired between Flash and me. At the beginning of the class, the professor informed us about the arrival of a new student. "Hello class, we have a new student joining us today. I will now give her the opportunity to introduce herself. Please come in," said the professor. As he finished speaking, I noticed a captivating young woman with platinum blonde hair, striking green eyes, and a playful smile on her face. "Hello everyone, I'm Felicia Hardy," she introduced herself, and as she did, a thought crossed my mind. This is incredibly frustrating. After finishing school, I made my way back to my apartment to assess the progress of the ship. When I considered exploring the extent of my vision and attempted to observe the overall location of its construction in space, I hadn't reached that distance yet, but I was able to spot the moon. In fact, I could even make out the craters on its surface. Shortly after, I arrived and took the elevator up. It is beneficial to take things at a more measured pace for a while. I finally arrived at my destination and entered the building. I started up my new computer, taking extra care to place it on a specially crafted desk to prevent any scratches. It was a highly advanced desktop that could accurately detect and utilize both my DNA and soul signatures. I observed the ship's progress and noticed that it was just about to commence. I let out a deep sigh, realizing that I had gone a bit too far with it. I am confident that once it is completed, it will be able to withstand even the most extreme conditions, thanks to its advanced shielding technology. I glanced at a well-lit spot that consistently basks in sunlight throughout the day, and there I noticed the sunstone crystals I crafted. These crystals have the ability to harness the power of yellow sunlight, serving as potential enhancers or as a last resort in case of an unexpected visit from Null, similar to what occurred in the King in Black event. I have one connected to an arc reactor to absorb the energy. I attempted to assimilate it, but it did not bestow upon me any additional abilities that I am currently aware of. I am also having various weapons manufactured, such as sunstone guns designed specifically for vampires. I have high expectations for their effectiveness. In the comics, Superman seldom relies on equipment, and when he does, it is consistently incredibly powerful. I will also be creating some extraordinary throwing knives that have the remarkable ability to return to me shortly after striking the target. My new adamantium weapon has some unusual characteristics. Given its resemblance to me, I inquired about the fate of the deity Neptune from the esteemed Ancient One, as there were rumors of his demise. He met his demise at the hands of Gorr, only to be thwarted by Thor. I completely overlooked Gorr. It is imperative that I devise a strategy to eliminate him and rid ourselves of the All-Black. I won't attempt to assume control over it, as I am a kryptonian and uncertain of how it would respond to me. I attempted to create a nanobot suit and weapons, but unfortunately, they proved to be more trouble than they were worth. Many of the species I observed experienced a high likelihood of malfunctions, leading to a cascade of failures. I want to clarify I already have access to them, but certain magnetic frequencies can render them obsolete due to their weaknesses. From my understanding, in DC they are commonly utilized in construction and medicine to combat viruses and other ailments. I will address them once I have identified and resolved any vulnerabilities. Returning to my weapon, I have the ability to modify the shape to my desired specifications. I wear it as a gold band on my wrist. I have the ability to mentally summon a trident, sword, or even a shield. It has the ability to adjust to specific effects. I placed it in the Phantom Zone and experienced a moment of panic when I realized it was transitioning into an immaterial state. However, I promptly retrieved it and found that it remained unharmed. With a mix of curiosity and apprehension, I returned it, only to experience its complete disappearance. I could now easily switch between it when I realized that it started to regain its substance. I could also utilize my expertise to channel my magic through it. I am capable of emitting a powerful surge of energy. The crimson energy proved to be highly destructive, unleashing a powerful energy blast that threatened to decimate the surrounding area. Swiftly recognizing the danger, I skillfully redirected the energy back to its own dimension, averting a catastrophic outcome. It became evident that the energy was causing disruption at the atomic level within the atmosphere. So skilled at nuclear explosions is incredibly impressive. The Speed Force energy proved to be incredibly versatile, allowing me to unleash powerful bolts of energy that resembled lightning. Through my observations, I discovered that these bolts were primarily composed of intense static shocks. I could also enhance the metal in it for an added effect. I also had implemented safeguards to defend against psychological assaults. Now you may be wondering why you continue to seek ways to further enhance your existing immunity to chaos. The answer is simple. Being prepared is always a wise choice, as Batman would attest. There have been numerous instances in the comics where claims of immunity have proven to be quite problematic. Even the most powerful beings can experience vulnerability and mortality. I also gained an increased level of magical resistance, although my natural ability to adapt can eventually counteract it. The most remarkable aspect is that it possesses its own enchanting core derived from my own, generating even greater energy for my realm. It also implies that with my expertise in utilizing the Speed Force, I might have the capability to summon it across different dimensions and eras, if the situation demands. I started brainstorming a name for it since I've been struggling to come up with one, when Jean gave me a call. She is going to give me a hard time, isn't she? I muttered to myself with a sigh. It was already dark outside, as I had arrived at my apartment a few hours ago. I responded and heard a few whimpers. Yes, Jean, is there anything I can assist you with? I asked, starting to feel a sense of concern for her. Could you please come for me? Something happened, she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. I swiftly donned my formal attire and prepared my tools, then promptly made my way to her residence. Before I realized my ability to open portals, I effortlessly opened one in midair. I noticed her quietly weeping on the street corner close to her home, fortunately without any onlookers. I approached her and noticed that she had several pieces of luggage with her. When she saw me approaching, she quickly stood up and embraced me, her tears flowing more intensely. Jean, what happened? I asked her with genuine concern. My parents discovered my mutant abilities when I rescued my dad from a fall while he was fixing outdoor lights on the second floor, she tearfully recounted. My parents informed me that it was time for me to gather my belongings and find a new place to live, as they were not comfortable having me in their home. She was crying uncontrollably. I didn't know who else to contact. She said I discreetly accessed an alternate entrance to my apartment, ensuring our privacy. Utilizing my personally crafted smartphone, I skillfully manipulated the street camera footage to create the illusion that our presence went unnoticed. I delivered her luggage and tightened my grip on her as I gently transported us to my apartment using the portal. I positioned us on a sofa and settled down with her on my lap, gently cradling her as she curled up and found solace in sleep, tears streaming down her face. Naruto was sitting on the same sofa as Jean, who was sleeping on his lap. Her hair is quite silky, Naruto thought as he ran one of his hands over it. He created a little portal to her home, and it turns out he can read people's thoughts this way, which is okay in general, but he was upset right now over what her parents had done. Naruto started going over her recollections of Jean's argument with her parents. Naruto noticed that they were frightened to hear of Jean's abilities and quickly referred to her as a monster. She must have reduced their actions, he thought to himself, enraged at them, as he started to see what they claimed. He was watching the memories like a movie, and he watched how they labeled her a devil and threatened to drown her because of her ability to do what she did. They dubbed her a mutie freak, and when Jean attempted to say anything, her father slapped her in the mouth, revealing that her lip was busted apart. Naruto carefully moved her face toward him, revealing that it had healed. She must have healed herself as she phoned him. He felt sorry that her father did it and outraged that her mother approved of it. Naruto returned to their brains to observe everything. Memory flashback start. Dad's pav. You freak. He shouted when he spotted she was trying to say something and delivered a blow that felt nice when it hit with her silly lips. With his wife cheering him on. She was not human since humans cannot accomplish what she did, yet he was secretly envious of her. You are an abomination, he said, throwing a blow at her stomach. He can't believe she came from me, this devil. She's not even human. If anything, he will just toss her out and let her be someone else's issue. He spat at her feet. Get the hell out before I call the cops, you monster, he shouted, spitting at her feet. Mom's pav. She cannot believe she gave birth to such a monstrosity. She was dissatisfied with her This object in front of me is a monster dressed in human flesh. She considered what she could do for a time. SHW questioned why her kid could do it and she couldn't. She became enraged by her husband's ability to perform something she is unable to do, and when she witnessed him strike her daughter in the face, she encouraged him to attack her again. Get the hell out before I called the cops, you monster, she heard her husband yell. She approached her daughter and turned her head towards her before slapping her in the face, following her husband's example of spitting at her feet. When she turned to look at her husband and saw him nod approvingly at what she accomplished, his eyes closed and he passed out. She turned to shout at her daughter, and then she passed out. Memory flashbacks and Naruto pav. I was so enraged at them that I refrained from using my heat vision on them. Maybe that sublime man did something, or Mr. Sinister? I pondered, hoping to find a reason to assist relieve Jean's suffering while her emotions ran wild. I could feel them and didn't like it one bit. I went through the feelings her parents were experiencing at the time, and I was appalled because I could detect animosity in them for Jean. Jealousy and greed, however, were the most concealed and obvious to me. They were the seed that grew into their hate for her. I even saw that her mother was envious of Jean's beauty. I was dissatisfied with them when I checked their system for anything. Even if it is untraceable or undetectable by human technology, I can detect anything that is displaced or bulging in their systems. I discovered nothing unusual. Her parents were healthy and in their mid-30s. I believe an experienced Superman who has seen numerous types of magic may glimpse the souls of creatures. I tested it myself since magic is one of my specialties, and what I witnessed amazed and saddened me. Through a gateway I created, I could see a ball of what I'll refer to as soul energy beneath their hearts. There were several hues that I understood were meant to symbolize the emotional spectrum. So, it seems certain things are multiversal, I thought. The ball has several layers. The ball's center was white, yet it was little and surrounded by orange, plenty of orange, greed. After then, it was red, which represents fury, anger, or hate, depending on your preference. Following that came yellow, which represented dread. Then comes a mingled layer of blue and green, hope and determination. Finally, a combined layer of pink and indigo, representing love and compassion. I could just make out a black translucent one, death. I glanced at Jean and was astounded by what I saw. The primary color remained white, but the following layer included pink, indigo, green, and blue. Following that, there was yellow, then red, orange, and eventually black translucent. I turned to gaze at Jean and said, "You are amazing," I said to myself, completely impressed. I knew I was falling for Jean. The only thing keeping me from pursuing her was the fact that she would die, and I would outlast her even with the Phoenix Force in her. The notion made me sad, and I noticed a tear slip down Jean's cheek. As if feeling my emotions, Jean slid her arms gently to wrap around me. I was thinking about how to fix this and came up with the Golden Sentry Serum, which increased her strength significantly. Any energy I received became mine. Might it function and absorb its strength, stopping Destroyer Darmas from gaining control of me? I was thinking seriously when it dawned on me that I actually own a Phantom Zone. There is an impossible universe within an impossible planet, and the planet has a little impossible rock. Platinum kryptonite. It was nearly morning, and I had remained up all night simply holding Jean. I could see the sunrise's beams and felt empowered by them. I eventually untied myself from her embrace, despite my want to continue holding her, and went to get breakfast for her. I could see her emotions were still in chaos. It would take her some time to recover from this tragedy, I thought to myself. As I went to take a shower, I reflected on how far I had come with my magic. My kryptonian magic was practically mastered. All I had to do now was experiment with it. I could employ all 4 kryptonian magic components effortlessly. My greatest increase in power was the capacity to create blank sunstone crystals. They could consistently absorb energy, but they were not designed. Kryptonian crystal technology works by converting data into energy that the crystal can absorb, and if enough is added, it can be used to create a supercomputer. That is just fantastic. I've gone to aid others by protecting them from muggers, accidents, or even keeping a child's balloon from floating away. I did made an effort to exhibit myself for a few seconds in order to make myself recognized. It took me a while to grasp this. I am preparing for anything, I muttered to myself. I knew I was being paranoid, and understandably so. Batman was the greatest illustration I could think of at the moment. The fact that I could think quicker than any human computer on the globe is noteworthy. I mean, look at all Batman has done. He has learned every martial technique known to man and is the world's finest detective, if not the whole universe, thanks to his meticulous preparation. But I've seen how much harm such will can produce. The Batman who laughs is one such case. He gathered enough strength to fight Perpetua, who is capable of destroying multiverses. He had even discovered a technique to deceive Perpetua by inserting his brain inside Bamanthadan or something. Whether he appears, and I am not sure whether he is a Batman villain or a Justice League villain, I shall capture his soul until I discover a means to completely destroy it. I switched off the shower and exited as soon as I saw the meal I had ordered arrive. I started thinking about platinum kryptonite again, as I had all night after discovering that it exists in the zone. I could send a mental astral body, which is basically multitasking, to seek for it, and I discovered that Superman was correct when he said the planet was impossible. I was surprised when I discovered it since it was the only thing other than myself that was material. I walked in there and stared at the molecules and atoms. They existed, but they were different, and it wounded my head. They were more or less translucent with a silver color, but the following one really surprised me. The nucleus was not surrounded by electrons. The proton was outside, while the electron was inside. It did not make sense until I recalled something. Kryptonite can offer people strength, as Lex Luthor was able to create a medication that improved his body. I was going to have to try the platinum version, but it made me concerned that if even a bit of this slipped into the hands of a random person, the pandemonium would be uncontrollable. If I do end up in a relationship with Jean, I was considering letting her touch it. I really didn't want to be alone forever, but I'd accept her decision if she refused. Perhaps I can dilute it. I facepalmed when I realized they may possibly understand my degree of adaptation. The zone is tied to me and has taken on some of my qualities. I can't really allow anything like that happen, but then I recalled one of my abilities. Power bequeathment. Maybe I'll be able to permanently endow someone with energy in the form of a Speed Force bolt combined with my Superman vision later on. Then I could just drain the Speed Force from them, and since they would have kryptonian physiology, they would retain their basic kryptonian abilities, although this is all theoretical. I'm going about with my hypotheses, and if they look feasible, I try to gather as much information as possible before trying. Perhaps platinum kryptonite might be used on animals on Earth, and having a faithful friend sounds like a wonderful idea. Are there familiars in Marvel? I honestly have no clue. I was thinking that maybe they may get stronger if they connect with someone, something to consider later. I had just gotten dressed and expressed gratitude to the woman who delivered the food, as I carried the dishes over to the sofa. I noticed Jean was already awake, observing her surroundings with a somber expression. "Good morning, Jean," I greeted her in a composed manner. "Good morning, Naruto," she greeted me with a somber yet inquisitive tone, evoking a sense of melancholy that tugged at my emotions. I couldn't help but notice the anguish reflected in her eyes. "How do you manage to afford living here? With your financial resources, you could have attended a private school. I'm curious about your identity and the extensive knowledge you possess. Your intelligence is remarkable, even though you attempt to conceal it. It seems that no meta-human possesses as many abilities as you do." She spoke with a tone that conveyed a sense of intimidation, at least from her perspective. I found it quite charming. I anticipated that she would eventually inquire about something of this nature. I'm wondering what I should say to her. "So you passed away and were reincarnated in this world with your abilities," she remarked after I shared the entirety of my previous life, demise, encounter with chaos, and subsequent journey up until this very moment. "Yes," I replied, "and you're familiar with the multiverse from there and you selected this one because of your extensive knowledge," she inquired. "Yes, but I don't have extensive knowledge on every single topic. For instance, I was completely unaware of Xavier's actions towards his students," I exclaimed, expressing my disgust towards the Xavier in our universe. "Are his colleagues distinct from him?" she inquired with a mix of disdain and intrigue. I was curious about her thoughts regarding me, as I shared various events from the MCU with her and aimed to safeguard the knowledge I had imparted. Some individuals strive to promote peace, but their approach may be misguided. They exhibit a strong conviction in their beliefs, making them resistant to change. I concluded by sharing my thoughts and insights on how Dumbledore utilized Harry Potter, emphasizing a mentality focused on the greater good. Jean appeared deep in thought for a brief period. "What is the current situation?" she asked with a somber tone. "I'm unsure." I provided an honest response. "I am unsure. I should have desired the ability to possess comprehensive knowledge about relationships. When I first met you, Jean, I must admit I had some concerns about your potential. However, as I got to know you better, my feelings towards you have changed and I no longer wish for you to." I refrained from continuing the conversation as the majority of Jean Greys I am familiar with have a tendency to meet their demise and remain deceased, even in the presence of the Phoenix Force. "To what?" she asked me assertively, causing me to flinch. "In most cases, individuals who acquire the Phoenix Force tend to succumb to the allure of power, often leading to their downfall," I replied honestly, struggling to hold back my emotions. This is unfamiliar territory for me. I was in need of assistance, feeling a lack of guidance from my parents and siblings. Jean glanced at me, briefly displaying a hint of hurt before a flicker of comprehension crossed her features. "The Ancient One informed me that the majority of avatars of the Phoenix meet a tragic fate," she stated. "I understand that you have a strong sense of loyalty and would go to great lengths to protect the people you care about," she continued. I paused my mopping and had a moment of realization. It may not be immediately apparent, but I genuinely care for others, especially Peter. I see him as a little brother and I want nothing more than to see him succeed. I saw potential in him and wanted to offer him a job, not just to benefit myself, but also to support him and his aunt. I always prioritize providing excellent treatment to everyone I interact with, as I value professionalism and respect in all my relationships. "Can we please move on from your thoughts?" It sounded like a question, but more like a firm request. During our encounter, she gazed at me with great focus. "You know what, forget it," she said, surprising me since she rarely ever uses strong language. She swiftly leaned in and kissed me. Her lips were soft and warm. I reciprocated her kiss with a cautious approach, unsure of my own actions. We were engaged in a tender embrace, savoring the moment, when I gently opened my eyes and found her gaze fixed upon me, our lips still locked in a passionate kiss. Then she closed her eyes gently as I felt her tongue on my lips. I was taken aback, my eyes widening even more. I closed my eyes and opened my mouth as her tongue engaged in a passionate dance with mine. I could sense a level of expertise as our lips met, and I found myself drawn to the taste of her saliva, which had a delightful blend of peach and a subtle hint of strawberry. I embraced her tightly, feeling the warmth of her body against mine. Our connection grew stronger as we held each other, lost in the moment of shared pleasure. I was becoming increasingly excited as she started to moan louder. Jean's perspective: he belongs to me. Since he entered my life, he has consistently provided me with valuable assistance, despite not having anything to offer him. When he informed me of his offer to accommodate me at his apartment, I recognized the need to pursue him before someone else did. I have always felt uncomfortable and anxious in social situations due to my ability to perceive people's thoughts and secrets. There were very few individuals who conducted themselves in a respectable manner, while the majority seemed to possess questionable morals and displayed hypocritical behavior. I am aware of only two individuals, Naruto and Peter, who consistently demonstrate respect towards others without expecting anything in return. Naruto may have other romantic interests, but I will make sure to maintain a sense of control and respect in those relationships. He informed me about a substance called platinum kryptonite, which supposedly has the ability to grant someone his unique abilities. I could tell he was uneasy about being by himself because he hadn't fully considered his wish. I spent the majority of my life in solitude, as I preferred my own company. My parents, before they discovered my abilities, were kind individuals. I sensed my mother's envy towards my appearance. I believed my father cared for me. I sensed a strong animosity directed towards me, which I confirmed through my mystical abilities. Naruto informed me about Sublime, who, as far as our knowledge goes, does not exist. Naruto also mentioned that he possesses immortality due to his kryptonian nature. I was confident that with the Phoenix Force, I would possess eternal life. However, based on my extensive research into various dimensions, it seems that the practical applications of this knowledge may be limited to our own universe. Venturing beyond our universe could potentially disrupt the delicate equilibrium, which is a complex concept to contemplate. This is particularly relevant considering his expressed desire to delve into alternative multiverses. It may be insufficient. Aside from its intention to utilize me and abandon Earth to fulfill its cosmic mission, there are other factors to consider. I would kindly request to accompany him on our journey to another world, aspiring to learn from his expertise. Perhaps Naruto could absorb it and then transfer it to me, utilizing his power absorption ability to make it his own. It's possible that he could extract its consciousness and gradually pass on the power to me as I learn to master it. His mouth had a pleasant flavor as my tongue explored its depths, revealing hints of mint and blueberries. I embraced him tightly, feeling his arms encircle me as we shared a passionate moment. I started to press my body against him gently, sensing a warm sensation against my stomach. Although I strongly disliked the way it came out of his mouth, I returned, my breath coming in heavy gasps. My thoughts immediately turned to two individuals at school: our professor, who has a unique role as an agent, and Naruto, who was soon confronted by them. Additionally, there was Felicia, a person with distinctive platinum hair. I overheard her thoughts about him and how she excused herself to the restroom. I caused her a headache by engaging in that behavior while she had him on her mind. Although he discovered me through a comic, I find it gratifying. However, I was deeply disappointed when he exposed the unfaithful actions of Scott Summers, who betrayed multiple versions of myself. I hold strong contempt for him. What is the deal with that ridiculous, woke nonsense? However, I will continue to assert my individuality and strive for equality with him, but above all else. Naruto is mine, she thought. Naruto's perspective. I was breathing heavily, not from exhaustion, but from excitement. I observed Jean breathing heavily and giving me a piercing gaze, with a brief flicker of an orange-red glow in her eyes. I was aware of the Phoenix's proximity to the Earth, and it's starting to frustrate me. I will not allow Jean to be taken under any circumstances. I gazed at her once more, gently placing my hand on her cheek and tenderly kissing her again. I was content. She leaned back just a hair's breadth away. We can explore the idea of eternal life another time. For now, let's savor this moment, she whispered softly before leaning in for another kiss. A tear trickled down my left eye as we shared a tender kiss, which she lovingly brushed away with her hand. I was really glad to have company. Fast forward a few days. I was soaring high above the clouds near the fortress, basking in the warm sunlight. Clad in a sleek black skinsuit and without a cape, I couldn't help but feel content about my newfound relationship with Jean, even though it progressed quite quickly. Efficient. We have carefully considered the matter and have made the decision to proceed. I suggested that she take some time to consider it, as I couldn't help but notice a flicker of a different hue in her eyes, reminiscent of the vibrant colors of the Phoenix Force. However, she is eager to give it a try, and now we engaged in intimate activities, extensively. I have limited experience in this area, but I am willing to give it a try. I realized the importance of giving her my full attention after witnessing the consequences of her intense reaction to Felicia's flirtation. I was aware of her engaging in private activities in one of the school's restrooms, which I found quite unusual, but I chose to let it go and move forward. She is currently pursuing a relationship with a guy named Ryan, but I didn't want to pry into the details. Apparently, he saved her from a terrible situation. I have limited knowledge about Marvel, so I am staying vigilant in case I come across any new information. I thought to myself, I am becoming more like Batman. I have a right, at least until I gain the ability to manipulate reality to a minimal extent. Being able to effectively manipulate reality on a small scale and maintain my own resistance to being manipulated is crucial. One aspect that concerned me, however, was the fact that someone also practices magic. It takes a true expert in the dark arts to possess the knowledge of magic, but there is an individual who surpasses even the infamous Red Skull in their mastery of this dangerous power. Thanos. This is incredibly frustrating. I was intrigued by him, as I knew he would make an appearance eventually. So, I consulted the Ancient One, who appeared quite surprised. The last time she glimpsed into the future, he lacked any magical abilities and relied solely on technology. Upon rechecking, she observed him utilizing rudimentary magic. However, she abruptly halted upon witnessing his actions. He saw her through the Time Stone, or so she believes. He may have observed the temporal or fundamental energy of an Infinity Stone. She also saw him holding the Mind Stone. This would explain if he really sensed the energy. She informed me that she would not use the Time Stone again since everything is lost after 5 hours. This implies she can only see 5 hours in the future. She couldn't see much beyond that for some reason, but I knew she felt it was my entrance that altered everything so dramatically. I informed Jean just how deadly Thanos is. She was terrified of him and worried about me because she knew I would fight him in the future. She asked me pledge to help her gain strength so she could assist. Which I'm starting to regret since, although she can't physically damage me, she can certainly hold me back for a long. I started to think about the Phoenix Force and the concept she gave me that I could absorb it and then rip its mind, or at least make it docile enough for Jean to utilize. When Loki comes, I may obtain the Mind Stone and combine it with the Time and perhaps the Space Stones to increase its potency. I plan to take as much of the Mind Stone as possible before moving on to the Space Stone, where I would absorb various types of solar energy. I wanted the ability to teleport, like Hel does in the comics. The Space Stone may even enable me to teleport anywhere, but it may also increase my own skills, making it feasible to go to another universe. Perhaps not another multiverse just yet, but it is a beginning. I gazed at the sun for a long time, and if I had still been human, my eyes would have been injured as a result. I started to gently escape the Earth, accelerating as much as I could. I assured Jean I wouldn't return until at least 25 hours had gone. I was about to take my first plunge in the sun in 15 minutes. Superman gained the ability to easily move whole planets. Consider only 1 hour, followed by 24 hours. That is only on a golden sun. Consider a blue one, an O-type star, or a blue-white one. I'm expecting to get more talents from the blue one. The closest one is B-type Regulus, which is 78 light-years distant. I'm going to steal or take it for myself. I'm going to place it in my particular dimension. I'm trying to see if I can simply absorb it from there, creating a blue star for my body to consume as energy. As I let go of my pace for the first time, I started moving faster than ever toward the sun. After 25 hours, the castle should send out a signal that only I could detect. Logan tested it to see whether it might be spotted by a blue whale. It did not even respond to it. I just passed Mercury. I saw the sun's enormous magnitude. I could feel it empowering me more than before. I used my limited control over my adaptation to improve my cell's ability to store and utilize energy. I could feel my core expand. I also started to transmit more energy from my center into my own realm. It was recharging even quicker than before, so I just transmitted 99% of the energy in my core to the zone every few seconds. It was refilling quicker than usual. I chose to gradually expose myself to the light, allowing my adaptability to prepare me for it. In a few seconds, I was touching the surface with my hands, but it was unusual in a nice way. I kept my eyes closed just in case, but I could see through my eyelashes. Without further thinking, I walked in and felt a massive pressure on my body, like if it was attempting to squeeze me. However, as my body adapted, I gradually regained the ability to move. I also made sure that my adaptation did not make me seem strange or sprout bones out of my body. I moved closer and closer to the center. When I arrived, I could sense it. An even greater pressure attempted to squash me, but again, I get closer and closer to it. When I arrived, I felt like I was in paradise. It felt incredible, like nothing could stop me. It seemed like all I'd done was merely to get to this point. My first move toward becoming anything different. Something more. I was traveling back to Earth after leaving the sun. I'm feeling better than ever before. I was now going beyond Mercury, and I could just make out the Earth's surface. I was pleased to realize that I had gotten stronger than before. I could sense the zone's energies had grown by at least 30 times. This only meant that I could now put them to better use. I was wondering about the speed force when flying through space, so I utilized it and was on Earth in less than a second, drawing merely from my core. I was a little below the clouds as I giggled to myself at my progress. I went to the stronghold to scan myself. As I entered, I approached the scanner to observe how much my physique had transformed. I waited a few seconds for it to complete, and those moments turned into minutes. After 4 minutes, it was finished. I recalled that it used to take about a minute to scan my body. When I looked at the findings, I was surprised to see them. My body had been rebuilt from the ground up, but at its core, I still qualified as a kryptonian since the scanner detected the distinctions between a normal one and me. My cells could now recharge themselves at a rate of around 1 in 100th of what I would receive if I stood in a desert on Earth. While it was far below the amount I had hoped for, the fact that I received anything at all was great. If I were someplace without sunshine, I could keep going. Something was still there, however, and it was insignificant since the most of it would most likely go to my core, not that I complained. Having to reduce my reliance on the sun even somewhat was sufficient for me. I continued transferring energy from my center to the zone. My greatest surprise was the growth in my core after using magic. It had grown by 20 times what it was previously. I was irritated because the more it rose, the slower it moved. Maybe I should increase it through training rather than just sunbathing, I told myself, since it was like a muscle made of magic. I need to come up with new spells since I mastered what little there was on the fortress, I blurted out. Kryptonians were cautious of magic, and they ultimately abandoned it in favor of science, but it did spur the invention of the Genesis Chamber when they mistakenly summoned a demon. I was going to have to do even more core training. I probably made matters worse by using it as a generator to produce both Crimson and Speed Force energy. I couldn't measure my strength anymore since I wrecked the new machine. I created it primarily out of true adamantium. Those components worked great, but the rest of the materials, which I had magically strengthened, did not. The machinery was totally wrecked. I was going to assume more than 10 million tons since I had planned it that way. Looks like I need to make a better one, I remarked, irritated yet pleased with my improved strength. On a customized treadmill, I could calculate my speed more easily. I was pleased with my new powers and much more motivated to perfect them. Unfortunately, there are currently no teleportation abilities. I summoned my adamantine sword, Zenith, from the zone and felt it slightly increase in strength. I wonder if it can also absorb solar energy. I left the stronghold after checking on the development of my spacecraft. It was still months away from completion, but it was something. I was thinking of using anti-metal to create some form of RAM when I recalled the game's Assassin's Creed Rogue and Black Flag. I planned to look at it more after the hull was completed. I rapidly rose above the clouds and, dissatisfied that it was unable of receiving solar energy, returned it to the zone. I flew across to New York and enjoyed the views. As I came closer to my flat, I saw Jean doing homework and eating. I walked in, and she smiled at me, which made my heart skip a beat. Keep it together, you have a beautiful girlfriend who lives with you and is somewhat possessive of you. I paused for a bit as she rose up and approached me, kissing me lightly. After a few seconds, I reciprocated the kiss. So where did you go? I was getting a bit worried. She expressed anxiety about what I did while I was abroad. Oh, I went into the sun to get stronger, I remarked casually. What? She expressed amazement and fear. I recalled that I hadn't told her I was going to the sun. You went where? She yelled at me as she examined me. I was going to say anything when she paused to stare at me, then smacked me. This had no effect on me, but it fractured her hand. She shrieked in anguish and gripped her now broken hand. I could see 4 of her fingers were broken, with the exception of her thumb. I quickly walked over and gradually numbed her hand in attempt to heal it. Why the #CK didn't you tell me? You said you'd be gone for a day, and you went to the sun, she shrieked at me. I was going to tell her that it had slipped my memory when I spotted a tear coming from her eye. I could sense her emotions and was irritated with myself for not understanding or just disregarding the fact that I was no longer alone. She knew I wasn't lying since she could feel my emotions and realized I wasn't lying about going to the sun. I carefully gripped her shattered hand as I healed. She was cringing and moaning in agony, but she glared at me as harshly as she could for not informing her. I am so sorry I didn't tell you how sorry I am, and I should have told you what I was going to do. I just don't think it hit me that I wasn't alone anymore, I replied, allowing her to experience my whole range of emotions. Her hand was completely healed, although certain nerves will remain painful. She had her eyes closed, and I could feel her experiencing my emotions as I felt hers. She held me carefully and started weeping quietly. I'm sorry, Jean, but I don't know what more to say, I told her mentally, berating myself for not understanding how to handle this issue. She only gripped me harder as I held her in my arms, tears streaming down my cheeks. I realized that my sun exposure had a mental impact on me, or at the very least made me more sensitive toward others. It took a while for it to take in, but I felt what Jean was experiencing, and I hated feeling that way, especially knowing it was because of me. I became upset with myself, and while I cursed myself, I sensed Jean attempting to transmit her feelings for me via our brains. This was a very intimate experience since sharing one's own feelings with another is a show of trust. I started letting her feel mine, and as I did, I gently moved us over to the bed. I promised I'll make it up to you, I murmured to her. I felt a sensation of fear as she removed her head from my chest and muttered. I know exactly how you're going to make it up to me, she added in a voice that made me shiver and feel like my wallet was about to grow lighter. #time skip 3 weeks. I was upset that Jean had fully taken over my man cave. However, in order to properly make it our home, I would need to purchase the whole building. Never thought I would think of it like that, I thought to myself. It was already late, perhaps 1 a.m. Fortunately, I no longer had to sleep, and I now slept more for leisure. I talked with Jean whether we should invite Peter to study magic. I informed Jean what I knew about the web of life, and if he could access it, he would most likely be able to compete with me in terms of power. She was astounded to hear of my notion about how strong he may become if he mastered magic. He can already pull strength from it via his spider sense. She also questioned why I wanted to make others stronger. #FLASHBACK Why do you want to make us stronger? I'm confident you can slay Thanos even if he becomes stronger. I mean, you're becoming stronger, too, she said, setting down some bags when we stopped for dinner. Jean, even if I get stronger, I can't do everything myself, I informed her. I am not all-powerful or all-knowing Jean. One of his alternate versions was able to kill someone who eats planets for breakfast in one blast easily, I added, attempting to make her comprehend how deadly Thanos is. If he really is as dangerous as you say he is, then we have to be ready. We have already dealt with some beings from other dimensions already while helping protect the sanctums. We can't really afford some just as powerful from our own dimension, she said, and she was correct. Some of the entities we've previously battled have been feeble. However, we had to battle a monster that had successfully crossed across. It highlighted how much they were undervalued in movies and comics. The monster we confronted was weak, according to the Ancient One. I recalled that demons were more like the ones in the Bible. My ordinary strength wasn't even tested since I easily went past him every time, and he was able to keep up with my pace. My adaptation, along with red energy, enabled my strikes to damage him, if slightly. Jean was able to injure him at first with some of her flames, but the demon learned it had to be cautious. These were not devils that could be easily defeated with sincere trust in God. No, average people must have real faith and the determination to fight back against them in order to get power from God himself. No, I do not mean you would get his power, but rather the strength to battle them. Consider it as obtaining holy energy capable solely of combating devils. That is all it accomplishes, it has no effect on others. I was startled to learn that they were hurt by dimensional energy, but, based on my research, they just worked. The individuals who found it out didn't bother to figure out why it worked. They were just delighted to be able to protect themselves against them. I wasn't complaining, I was simply interested why. Okay, so are we going to bring Peter in or not? Jean inquired, and I recognized that I had lost focus while recalling the events of our battle with the monster. Oh, yes we are, I said to her. Are you going to tell him everything you told me? She questioned me mentally as we started eating. I trust you the most in this world and you are capable of defending yourself mentally now, maybe better than anyone in the multiverse except me and some other powerful beings probably. Her defenses were patterned like mine, which had been granted to me by chaos. Thankfully, she was able to achieve it after several attempts. The Ancient One couldn't even get a thought out of Jean, so she asked me if she could study it too. I saw no problem with her knowing it, and I made certain she didn't see my recollections. It was really straightforward to learn. Consider watching a YouTube tutorial on how to create something. Even if they didn't get close to mine, they made fantastic progress. The Ancient One affirmed that she didn't sense any assaults from an entity that specialized in mind attacks. I understood they were totally outmatched in mental protection. While I had no doubt that they would be unable to withstand the Mind Stone, I knew my defenses could since mine were provided by chaos. I wasn't slacking off in metal assaults, either. I'll tell Peter a narrative to make things easy for us. Also, I am sure he will not desire to travel to a new world. I informed her, knowing Peter would choose to remain. Are we bringing anyone else or just the whores? She answered angrily at the end. I sighed heavily at that. I regretted not paying better attention to Felicia. #flashback inside a flashback. I was watching a movie with Jean at our apartment when Felicia called my name. When I concentrated sufficiently, I was able to capture and hear someone's pulse. I heard her cry for aid, followed by the sound of a punch. I promptly sent Jean a mental message while changing into casual clothing instead of my suit. I ran over to her spot. I arrived after a few seconds and saw she was at a party. I despised myself for forgetting her origin. I stepped inside, trying not to hurry up, and went over to her room. I looked inside with X-ray vision and saw Ryan pulling off her clothing. I opened the door, walked over to him, and knocked him unconscious. Felicia stopped yelling and started crying gently. I instantly contacted the police and informed them where I was after asking someone at the party for the location. I wrapped the bed blankets around her and held her. I did not say anything, she simply uttered one thing. "Thank you," she muttered. #flashback within flashback over hash. I glanced to Jean for her response. "Sorry, Felicia and the spy," she murmured with remorse. I sighed. Felicia created hero worship for me. She has actually grown closer to me, Peter, and Jean, albeit there hasn't been much growth with Jean. Natasha has been under increased pressure to seduce me. The only thing holding her back was the fact that I was a minor. She just recently decided to seduce me. Jean told me since she was mostly paying attention to it. Jean's pov I know I may not be enough for him since I've found that the stronger he becomes, the more I have to do to keep him content. Felicia, I was considering letting her know about our connection. I know she has true emotions for Naruto. Natasha, on the other hand, was our instructor and a spy who was ordered to monitor us and seduce Naruto. I know I'm slowly falling in love with Naruto after realizing that the majority of my feelings were enhanced by the Phoenix energy inside me. I thought about it more since it simply expressed how I feel about him, but gosh, her ass looked incredible. Maybe I should let them join, even if I'll be Naruto's first. I'll keep them in order and teach them respect. Fufufu. Naruto's pov I got a few goosebumps for some reason. I had no idea why I was suddenly pitying both Felicia and Natasha. Flashback over it was 2 days ago. Today, however, I uncovered something fascinating while spying on a couple warehouses owned by Tony Stark but formerly held by his father. I saw a ring in one of the finest Iron Man shows ever. A Makulan ring, it was the green one in the show. I adored armored adventures. I planned to create a duplicate and take it for myself. Now I needed to do something. Time skipped 3 days. Jean and I were in the fortress practicing our abilities. I was attempting to teach Jean how to create a telekinetic force field around herself. "This is too difficult. Your bioelectric aura is bullshit," Jean grumbled. "It definitely is," I agreed with her after discovering it was somewhat similar to telekinesis. I hoped that with enough practice, Jean would be able to recreate it. This takes me to the next point. I do it unconsciously, and it becomes stronger on its own. When I concentrated even more on it, my bioelectric aura became almost ethereal in appearance. Afterward, it would gradually return to me and become stronger. Kryptonians are, without a doubt, a bunch of nonsense. The negative was that it depleted a significant portion of my energy reserves. I climbed above the clouds to recuperate quicker, but it's not something I should do too frequently. I gazed at Jean as she attempted again to construct the shield, eventually succeeding in attempting to turn it into a subconscious motion. Consider the brain to be a supercomputer. She is creating a software that will produce and power the field around her unconsciously. "You did it, Jean. I can feel it around you now, though you might want to reduce the amount of power you're using," I added, seeing she was sweating and breathing rapidly. "My energy reserves are not enough yet without drawing energy from the Phoenix Force," she remarked with a smile. I walked over to assist her since she had collapsed on her knees owing to the exertion. "It's okay, Jean, you'll get stronger on your own the more you practice," I informed her, attempting to express that everything was okay. From what I could see, she would probably be able to withstand punches or kicks at most. She has not yet encountered any gunshots or sharp objects, but she will. I knew she was fatigued, so I grabbed her up and took her to our chamber in the castle. It was nothing special, just a bed, a desk, and a supercomputer. I lay her on the bed since she had fallen asleep on the way here and gently kissed her on the forehead. It was Saturday, so she could relax before we returned to school. I headed over to my lab to check on the ship's development and the McLuhan ring's functionality. The ship's development was going well since I could now supply sunstone crystals using my own powers, so that was covered at least somewhat. The McLuhan ring was the green one from Iron Man Armored Adventures. According to what I recall, it could produce impact beams and, when combined with some of the other rings, create blasts that could equal the X-Man Cyclops' greatest I-beams. However, in the absence of additional rings, it may cause harm to steel skin-level metals. I was scanning them with my tiny eyesight, which was wonderful. The technology had so many fine intricacies that it seemed to be as advanced as any kryptonian technology. When I used magic to scan it, I detected a large amount of power that seemed to be bound to this ring alone, despite the fact that it was incapable of retaining it. Maybe that is why the rings need each other to use their full power. I took the ring and put it on, and I could instantly feel the ring limiting its power to prevent me from utilizing it. I could tell it employed a biometric scanner to look for the dragon seed or McLuhan DNA. As I did, I felt a suppressor being removed, so I destroyed the test, which was most likely the case. I wanted to chuckle when I realized the scanner wasn't quite a part of itself, so I used my telekinesis to shatter it and extract the parts. Dr. Doom's ability to utilize the ninth ring was not surprising given that he removed the scanner. The nicest aspect was that I felt it classified as an unaffiliated artifact. Apart from the scanner, anybody else could utilize it if they got their hands on it. This meant that there was no clear proprietor of the ring. Consider Doctor Strange's cloak of levitation, which exists in numerous realities. The ring is an artifact with no owner or genuine necessity to use. I was going to claim it for myself, but I was disappointed that I wouldn't be able to tie it to me like Zenith. They were not crafted or manufactured like my weapon. They were just tools, although strong ones. The scanner must have been a new addition when they were transported to Earth and handed to the original Mandarin, I reasoned as I concentrated on the ring, causing the Mandarin armor to form around me. It appeared similar to the one in the exhibition, but there were a few modifications that made it simpler to transport. I was wearing a skin suit at the time, and I could see the armor forming around me. The ring was generated from molecules in the air. I recalled the orange ring, which was capable of modifying matter. I was going to presume it was metal from the McLuhan's home planet since it was unfamiliar to me, but from what I could see, it was a little stronger than iron. Perhaps the rings are still linked in some manner. I removed one of the gauntlets and attempted to squash one of the claws, but to my dismay, it bent readily under my power. This is so awful. I was unhappy with the armor itself. Perhaps I might add new materials and improve them, potentially binding them to me so that they gain qualities from me, similar to my adaptation. In any case, this is unsatisfactory. Maybe it can be made stronger with more rings. I was starting to recall that the original Mandarin in the Armored Adventures cartoon wasn't as nasty as his successors were. That's why he concealed the other rings and left the purple one for one of them, I thought. I attempted to check whether it could handle magic, and to my amazement, the armor looked more than capable of absorbing the energy. It wasn't Uru, for sure, since I could see part of the technology in the armor, which allowed it to absorb as much magic as possible. I had already repaired the gauntlet in my arm. That saved some time, at least. When I had an idea on how to strengthen the armor, I made it vanish. I made the armor dissolve and carefully removed it off me. A few seconds later, I was inspecting the dismantled armor. I was looking at everything, and in a flash of clarity, I realized that the armor was quite changeable. It was so changeable that I may be able to add new materials to it and perhaps improve it. If not, I probably won't use it. However, I plan to try it later to see whether my aura improved things. When I recalled my trip to Kamar Taj one day. I was roaming around Kamar Taj one day when I stumbled upon a certain sword and scabbard. Excalibur. I didn't even bother attempting to raise it after seeing the mystical etchings on the blade that gave it its abilities. Potency. The blade is capable of killing anybody, even gods, immortals, and ghosts. Healing. The sword can heal auras. Durability. The sword was almost unbreakable. However, there are at least 2 reported fragments of Excalibur, indicating that it may be destroyed and bits taken. Invincibility. When equipped with the sword, the user becomes unstoppable. Invulnerability. Excalibur's scabbard, known as Avalon, provides invulnerability to its user, rendering them incapable of being wounded or injured. Magic detection. Excalibur may give its owner the capacity to detect magic around them. I had asked the Ancient One if she could explain the enchantments and how to reproduce them. #FLASHBACK#. No, said the Ancient One simply. Why not, I inquired, noting that when we discovered Thanos was studying magic, we increased our instruction. Some of the magic she practiced on was incredible yet hazardous. Your thirst for power is enough to deal with on its own, and that worries me, she stated in an indifferent tone as she sipped her tea. You see why I need to grow stronger. Thanos will only be the tip of the iceberg, I said naively. #flashback end # I was a little stupid in my response. I told her all I knew about Null, and she asked for recollections of him. I have recollections of him decapitating a Heavenly with ease. She quickly accepted after seeing him slay the Heavenly. She was familiar with the Necrosword, which had murdered Neptune and a few other gods on Earth. But she was certain that the sword was forged by Gore. After she explained how the enchantments were created, I understood I'd have to wait till I could get my hands on some Uru. The fires of creation showed me how mighty Excalibur really was. I felt it might challenge the Necrosword if it was more like a symbiote. The flame of creation, or, more specifically, the flame of a celestial, created and strengthened the enchantments and Excalibur. When delivered a deadly blow, both the Necrosword and the Excalibur proved to be capable of killing everything. Avalon was just an extension of Excalibur designed to avoid self-injury. I am confident in my ability to outperform both of those weapons. I have a lot more to accomplish, so I'll have to wait till I have some Uru. It was time to pay a visit to the deceased. The remains of a deceased Heavenly on Earth. Time skips too many days. I chose not to wait and instead went to the Heavenly Dead. I needed to get my hands on some Uru first. However, I also needed to study more magic. I was going to receive those enchantments. I didn't desire Excalibur or the issues it would cause. I was more or less concentrated on obtaining the Makluan rings. The armor was difficult to change, but feasible. I added vibranium and replaced the claws with true adamantium. I could make the armor disappear and reappear with the upgrades. I discovered that it really created the armor using the power of the orange Makluan ring and stored it in a very tiny pocket dimension. According to my memory, the orange ring had the ability to transform matter. I'm not sure to what degree, but I wanted to find out. I was in Greenland after school. Natasha was absent today for personal reasons. I hacked into S.H.I.E.L.D. and discovered that an operation in Europe had gone awry, and she had been dispatched to remedy it. I'm in Greenland for the Temple of Courage, which has the blue Makluan ring, which can make water and enable someone to control it. It was supposed to be one of the easiest examinations since I just needed to be unarmed. I was wearing a skin suit, and Jean commented on how hot I looked as she looked me up and down. I instantly recognized the temple, which was much larger than I expected. I entered by phasing through the walls and immediately saw Ultimo, a mechanical entity. I was planning to recreate it as well since it might potentially grow in size and power via energy absorption. I saw it kneeling on the ground, face down, holding the ring in its hand. I grabbed the ring and selected one of the random weapons, an axe, and dropped it on him, activating it. I then picked up a sword. It appeared like it was ready to strike, so I dropped the weapon and opened my hands awkwardly. It peered at me for a few seconds before deactivating and returning to its former kneeling stance, arms at its side. I picked it up as the ring reactivated. I swiftly destroyed the scanner and headed to the fortress to pick up the green ring, leaving Ultimo behind. I then traveled to Mount St. Helens for the red ring. I planned to test them after I'd gathered the ones I wanted. I was staring over Mount St. Helens, looking at the temple within. Someone must have a lot of guts to get in there since the heat alone would likely melt anybody attempting to go inside. How did the Mandarin expect someone to go through all of those lava waterfalls? I wondered. Would it be lava falls because? I shook my head, recalling the third ring. The water ring could hardly generate a water blast capable of damaging timber on its own. I couldn't even make shapes with the water. However, after pairing it with the green ring, I was able to demolish wood more easily and even construct some rudimentary water patterns with it. I was a little bummed at this point since Zenith could do more than simply provide me little weather control. Keeping in mind my kryptonian magi talents, I had more influence over the weather. Water control was simple. It improved my ability to heal someone with a deadly injury in less than a minute. However, I couldn't completely restore limbs since I needed to practice a lot more and think of hundreds of billions of computations to ensure I did it correctly. I could at least assist someone who was paralyzed from the waist down regain the ability to walk. I was helping people the other day and assisted a youngster who seemed to be approximately 7 or 9 years old in getting out of a burning building. He was the last person inside the building. I gently pulled him off the ground as he was weeping, and he gazed at me in wonder as I soared down with him, giving the reporters an excellent look at me. I have absolutely no understanding how ventriloquism works. Flashback: I had just completed dropping off a lady on the street who seemed to be in her mid-30s. "Are you okay? Any pain on your head anywhere?" I inquired as I heard the noises of a child sobbing in the building. "No, I am fine, just a bit shocked," she answered. I nodded and flew to where I heard the youngster, scanning the building with my X-ray. Thankfully, no one else seemed to be inside but the toddler. I rushed up to his window and pushed it open to find him weeping on the ground and attempting to get into his wheelchair, but he was panicked and fumbling with it. "Hey, I'm here to get you out, okay?" I murmured softly, as the sight of him attempting to get into his wheelchair tugged at my emotions. He seemed stunned as I approached him carefully, and as I got there, a beam from the ceiling crumbled and was headed for him. I swiftly covered my arms and the beam with my back. I pushed it aside and stepped out the window, holding the child in my arms, onto the street, where several reporters snapped photos of me. I was around 3 meters from the ground. "Is anyone here the parents of this child?" I asked nervously as I saw 2 individuals attempting to force their way through without success. I looked at their DNA and the children and realized they were kin. I approached them and handed them their kid, to which they thanked me while cuddling him. I examined the condition with his legs and spine and discovered that the bones in his legs were deformed. I approached him swiftly, but his parents remained wary. "Don't worry, I'm going to help him," I murmured softly, placing my hands on his knees and starting to heal them while making sure he wasn't in any agony. Slowly, his bones began to rebuild, and I also restored the atrophy that had occurred over the years. I gently helped him stand up as he stumbled and walked for the first time. He started crying as he went over to his parents for the first time. They started to weep after watching him walk, and they thanked me through their emotions. I realized what I had done in public as cameras flashed around me. I flew into the air and departed. Flashback: and I sighed to myself, recalling the time when I became a global phenomenon. For the first time in a long time, I was irritated because no one noticed I was at school, and the only people who did were Jean and Natasha. We planned to inform Peter later, after he'd gotten adjusted to his new body and assisted his aunt. I shook my head and entered the temple. It appeared identical to the other one, but the exam was different. It had 2 chalices or something, one shining white and the other crimson, with a beam in between. I grabbed both and dropped them into the beam as it faded, grabbing the ring before it hit the ground. As everything started to tremble, it seemed to be from a performance. I hastily escaped as the temple crumbled on itself. I placed the fire ring, red, and returned to the castle to prepare to go to Latveria for the black ring or dark force ring. I was not going to let Doom get his hands on it. But on the way back, I smashed the bioscanner in the red ring and went on my way. Time skips a couple days. I got to the stronghold in a minute, which made me quite happy with my new speed. I went to a particular training place with my strength test machine, which was still broken. I removed the blue and green rings but kept the red one since I was planning to test its strength alone. I kept the modified Mandarin armor on and used the ring to cause an explosion. I was disappointed since it behaved like a flamethrower. I was able to create a flame on my hand with the ring. I was able to close my fist and punch with fire. It also allowed me to control flames to some extent. I put on the green ring and instantly felt a change. Everything I did before was much simpler. I recall that in the play, they enhance each other. The fire was simpler to control and more strong. I put on the blue ring, and it was OP. I could now create and manage an Olympic-sized pool of water, and my green ring's impact beams could now tear through some metal in a matter of seconds. The fire ring could now be more exact, and I had enough control over the flames to create fireballs that caused explosions. The Mandarin in Armored Adventures was said to be a god with the rings on, I told myself, realizing that if the boosts were this potent, I needed to grab the ring from Latveria right now. I told Chaos that I wanted to move to a world free of writers and editors, which explains what Charles did. I was in a much more perilous environment than I thought. I was in a world that did not rely only on mythological myths, as my own did. Stories of Zeus and Ares forcing themselves on women. They were undeniably wicked. What kept me from worrying was my desire to be in an MCU with comic aspects. I was going to need to murder some gods, but first, I need to retrieve the black ring from Latveria. The capabilities of the McLuhan rings in the program were restricted owing to their budget. In contrast, I lived in a world where it didn't matter. According to one YouTube video, these were essentially the smaller version of the Infinity Gauntlet. With that thinking, I run over to Latveria, praying that Dr. Doom hasn't journeyed back in time to the dawn of magic and returned by waiting. Some of the gods will not be as pleasant as they are in the comics due to the lack of author control and editing, which is why Charles succumbed to the temptation of his power. I was berating myself for asking for such a perilous world. When I recalled that certain gods can use individuals as avatars, I realized that the only reason they've been waiting so long is because they're trying to murder me, control me, or steal my power. I shook my head and proceeded on to Latveria. I started looking around everywhere, hoping to find a temple that resembled the others. I discovered it in a woodland near the major city of Latveria. Fuck my life, I thought, hopefully I won't have to meet doom. I was about to enter when I observed that the doors were locked and that no one was there. I could see the guardian, who seemed to be a humanoid jackal, in front of which was a stone pedestal with the ring on it. I approached it, keeping an eye out for the guardian. I grasped the ring, and the jackal sprung to life, slashing at me with speed and power that would have ripped a human in two. It was presumably designed to be strong enough to combat the Mandarin with 8 rings, since they seemed to go in sequence. However, I was not going in order. I quickly evaded another swipe by summoning my Mandarin armor, which caused it to halt for a second before launching itself at me. I ducked again as a crater developed around where he struck. I swiftly put on the black ring, smashed the scanner within, and created some bond with red energy. I didn't expect it to function that way. I'll look into it later. I mused to myself while the jackal strained with the restraints. Soon, it stopped resisting and started crying, and I could barely hear footsteps approaching. I heard a boom as I grabbed the jackal and moved out of the path, and it demolished a portion of the temple. I glanced at the shooter and discovered it was Dr. Doom. He appeared as he did in Armored Adventures, but he sounded a little youthful when I realized he hadn't met Reed and the others. I truly am too soon, I thought to myself. Who are you two and what is this place? He sounded haughty but also royal, if that makes sense, because he was speaking another language. I came here to get what belongs to me. I wasn't sure whether Doom recognized me when I put on the armor to confront the Guardian. You stand in my home country of Latveria and try to claim that this temple and its secrets belong to you. He talked in English and sounded angry off. I noted that this Doom is far less experienced than the one in the comics. He must have hardly begun. I could see through his face mask, and he had no scars. His feet were the reason I couldn't hear him well. On his feet, I could see his boots were converting sound into energy for his suit. He directed a green beam of energy toward me, which traveled slowly in comparison to me. I immediately got out of the way and proceeded to examine his armor, which clearly wasn't the one in the comics since it looked much too fine, and if the technology wasn't enough of a giveaway, this was most likely his effort to replicate Iron Man's armor in his own style. I could see him plainly within his armor, so it wasn't the one from the comics. This Doom may not be powerful or knowledgeable enough yet, but I could read his thoughts and was astounded that he learned himself magic and had his knowledge enhanced by several monks who assisted him with it. I don't identify any of the dimensional energy emanating from him, but I could tell it was because I knew someone with enough skill for the mystic arts could figure out how to use them on their own. I was debating whether I should kill him now since his potential was enormous, and I could see he had enchanted his own armor using my magic sense, which I needed to improve. If it had been Uru, his armor may have been able to withstand a blow from me. I was shocked to see how many enchantments he had, despite the fact that they were not especially powerful or stunning. He has many for improving his armor's durability, as well as his strength and speed. Granted, I'm considerably quicker and stronger than him. I was basically walking around him in circles. I accelerate up to ensure he doesn't have anything that will enable him to stay up with me. You can never be too worried about Doom. I was amazed with his achievements. Some recollections that terrified me were the fact that he lacked an actual gift for magic and had to acquire it through hard effort and perseverance since he did not inherit his mother's skill. No surprise he thinks he's better than everyone else. Even if he's arrogant to an insane degree, he worked hard for whatever he has, which is complemented by his own brilliant intellect. This is presumably why he despises Reed so much when they meet. Reed practically had everything given to him, including money and the opportunity to further his studies. While there is no doubt that Reed is intelligent, he has never had to work hard for anything because he understands everything so easily, which explains his habit of working on multiple projects at once and caring little for others who work hard to improve themselves. At least my Reed is like that. Shit, I hope he doesn't become the creator in this world, I thought to myself. Victor von Doom was raised by gypsies when his mother was banished to hell and his father perished in the cold while he was a child. This explains why he respects individuals who are not just intelligent but actively strive to develop themselves. Victor, while intelligent in his own right, has had to go through a lot to get where he is now, and the people who serve him in his country are prospering, which is why he does not want to endanger his citizens and fights for them. He is even working on robots to replace his military and doombots. He is adopting rules that benefit both those with authority and those without. I wasn't sure if I should murder him or not. To be continued. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit that like button and smash that subscribe for more amazing videos, and of course, drop a comment down below to let me know your thoughts.